Excuse, not excuse.
Yeah.
You read the book
Probably
Global
just,
Therapy?
No.
I'm reading it again. It's brilliant.
Nah, listen to me. I'm talking light, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. The mind is the most important
Then the
function.
human is the aim
Okay,
is the
let me
most
learn.
important thing.
Well, yeah.
Okay, Shir HaMaila is page Shin Sadik Ches. Shir HaMaila is Mamamah Kim Korasicha Havaya. This means the song of the Mailas of the sense. Mamakim from the deepest insides, from the deepest depths. Korasicha, I call to Hashem. In a mizbezet, tiknu leim rebesa esmei tshuva. This mizmer was established to be said in Seres Yemei Tshuva. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. V'tzorach lahavim maui in the b'chol yem Seres Yemei Tshuva. V'tzorach lis mizmer zed the shir hamayil. V'tzorach leimen mizmer zed the shir hamayil mamakim. Why do you have to say this every day in Seres Yemei Tshuva? B'zoyer b'shal daf samar gimel seif amid aleph iser Rab Chizkiya posach shir hamayil mamakim. Rab Chizkiya opened and said, on this pasuk shir hamayil stam v'lei pirish man omrei. It just says shir hamayil. It doesn't say who says it. Song of that sense. Who said the song? Like you say, Mizmer David or whatever. So what's pshat? Elashir Hamayil is meaning called Bnei Alma Lameimer. Shir Hamayil is you are calling upon, you're inviting everyone in the world to say, Umayhu Mamamakim Korasicha. Shir Hamayil, in other words, is a type of call to everybody, everybody's call. And what are you saying, Mamamakim Korasicha? Hochitana Kol Man the Matzlit. Listen, this is what we learned. Kol man the matzah tzlusa kamei malka kadisha tzorech boy ba'usa l'tzlo b'um kedeliba. It's a lesson that when a person, every person who davens before malka kadisha, for the Eibishter, has to call out ba'usa l'tzlo b'um kedeliba, has to call out and from his heart, from the depths of his heart. Umi Omer David hachiv haksiv b'chol libi. The Pirish b'migdash melech, that's the Pirish on the Zevim, came ahai tzorach lemer eid mamak morasicha.
You already said it.
He already said it. Chol libi darashticha. He already said chol libi. So what's it adding? Ella the boy lekavno daite v'reusei mikore de kol ikri. The Zohar answers, he's adding here that the kavona is to be, that this is the kavanah that has to be completely giving away his ratzon, his to the heart, is ikra of kol ikrim. That's the Yisafi here.
What's ikra? Ikra the
Kol ikrim, like you said, how you say this.
Uh-huh.
That is explaining to explain how fundamental it is. That the person,
Rusei.
ratzon. The kavanah daite rusei, the kavanah is dasan, there's ratzon. But tzorach lahavin ma'u hefesh b'mashakasav b'chol libi dereshticha mashakasav mamakim korasicha mikra the ikrim. What does mamakim korasicha make it more fundamental than it says b'chol libi dereshticha? Both of them talking about calling from the heart. Gam tzorach lahavin mashakasav. There's a meaning called b'nei alma l'meimed the tana demand the matzah kol mum kediv. What does it mean that it's meaning called b'nei v'chimishum zez meaning called b'nei alma l'meimed da? It's one thing saying it's a fundamental thing that you have to speak from your heart. But what is this meaning called b'nei alma, which is like inviting all b'nei alma? Just because it's so important that you say it from your heart, that's why called b'nei alma, you invite everyone to say it? What does this mean? Like, in order to understand this, we have to preface what we learned earlier, that keser b'chinas mamutza bein ha'maitzel and netzolim. Remember mamutza. As keser is a mamutza tzvishn the maitzel, the Eibishter, how he's a maitzel, the source, the netzolim to the forces that are netzal from atzilus, the liyash and netzolim him be'in arech legaba atzmus, because the netzolim are be'in arech, they're infinitely distant from atzmus. Al-kain b'chdei sheyeh chibur v'shayachim l'netzon al-atzmus zeh yedei mamutza. Since they're so distant, ein areich, so you need to have a mamutza that connects the two. Zeh the mamutza shekol b'chinas atzmus ha'maitzel b'chinas ha'netzon. You need a mamutza between the maitzel and the netzolim. like we spoke about, between something that is between the Eibishter and the Netzolim. Omnam adayin ein moving is kuf tzadik vav. Okay, so we know we need a mamutza. Omnam adayin ein moving, but still it's not understood. Eicha keser b'chinas mamutza. How could keser be a mamutza? How keser is a mamutza? Ma'achad b'chinas el yenu sheboi, she b'chinas tachtenu sheb'maitzel, b'chinas atik oi keser sheb'keser. Since the higher part of keser is tachtenu sheb'maitzel, it's the lowest part of so-called of the Eibishter, of the maitzel. What's called atik, atik and arich, 2 parts in keser, or keser sheb'keser. The atik ub'chinas hatokas atzmus. The word atik yemen means that's hatokas. It's like separate from hatoka. It's apart from. That means atik is mamish the maitzel, the source. V'gam b'chinas keser b'keser, so b'chinas rotzen atzmi kanal perek kuf tzadik hey. And also keser sheb'keser, which is the rotzen atzmi, the Eibishter's essential rotzen, will. That is a b'chinas atzmus ein sei baruch. That's all atzmus. This level has no connection to this world. And it's not counted among them. That's why he says keser. The primis keser is not nimna in the sfiris. When you count the 10 sfiris, atik, when you're counting from atik, you don't count it. If you count from arich, it's counted in the 10 sfiris, then you don't count das. So forever, this level of atik is always higher, like the atzmus hamaitzel itself. So where's the mamutza here? It's always apart. It's always in a different place. On the other hand, the b'chinas tachteno shaboy, and the lower level in keser, which shezeh b'chinas chochmas tamoa befrat, which specifically means the hidden chochmah. V'iev shebachlal le'elam nimna. I'm sorry, the arichamfen. B'chlal, I read it wrong. B'chinas tachteno shaboy, the lower part of keser, which is befrat is chochmas tamoa, ba'arichampen b'chlal, and b'chlal it's arichampen. And forever, you always count it in the 10 spheres, because it's a source. So these 2 levels of atik and arich, the 2 levels of keser, are completely separate. This is the level of atzmus, this is the level of the netzolim, of the spheres that come in atzilus. So how could it be a mamutza? Just to explain it in simple gzashmizdik thing. Okay, the Rebbe is in his room. We're here. Okay? And he's saying we have some connection with him, not just following orders. So who's the connection? So you say, okay, the Rebbe has, let's say, not the Rebbe, maybe we should use the example of a previous Rebbe and had a son. So he sends the son out, and you're going to speak to the Chassidim. You have stories. And he's like carrying a message from the Rebbe. So he's a shtickle Rebbe, because he's a son, and he carries. Does that make a shaykhus? He still on the Rebbe's level. We're on our level. So just because he was sent, where is the mamutzi? The higher part of keser is still connected to Lakus. What suddenly made it a mamutzi? So we're still back to the same sphere. It's true that here the Rebbe's here, we're here. So you got brought a little closer. But when it comes to the bottom line, it's 2 different worlds. That's the problem that he's having here. So just to say that there's a representative, let's say you have a representative, and there's a representative of the Rebbe and there's a representative of us, so what? When they get together, these 2 representatives, this one represents the Rebbe, this one represents the people, and they still are still as equal apart. And we're not saying this one got lower and this one got higher. That's the problem. In other words, you just carried over the problem to keser. You follow? So think of it, the infinite is here, the finite is here. Okay, the infinite made a representative that's like the finite as a representative. But the 2 representatives are still too far apart. That's the problem. So he has to find a place, basically the big dilemma is there someone that has both? Can be a shtickle infinite or shtickle finite? That's the real issue here.
But I have a question. No, that's what they say. The previous one previous one
Yeah.
What's that ad point tove? we say that as Kesser, Atik, kommt an bis a gewissen Ort. Das ist Atik, Asmus. Where does it stop? Like, what? I don't know, I'm being maybe Megashim the whole idea, but where does it all of a sudden say, okay, here's Meitzel and here's Natsal, here's Atik and here's Adich. What happened?
Well, look, you have to remember that we think in Gashmizdika terms,
Right.
like you say, this table ends here and then starts this chair, and there's a space in between. In Ruchnius, if they just know how to think differently, there's Mokim Ruchnius. In Mokim Ruchni, it's not a physical thing, but there's still levels. For example, just to use an example, a father and a son. Where does the father stop and the son begin? So it's a conceptual thing. We're not talking about the father, the Gashmizdika body. The idea of him being a father. It's more of a issue of respect. That a father is brought the son into the world, but he's not the son. It's another level. So in Mokim Ruchni, you have to think in terms of levels. One thing is a cause that brings another. So now when you have the effect, like the son, the father is no longer the son. So you understand what I'm trying to say? In other words, you have to think in more abstract terms. Mokim Ruchni is just a matter of levels as opposed to physical spaces. In physical, the only way we understand a table, a chair. I can give 1,000 examples. I'm just trying to think of other examples, the same idea. The best examples are in this type of hierarchy. The Rebbe and a Chassid. You go on standing in the... where does the Rebbe begin? Where does he end? It's not a Gashmizdika thing. It's a place. This is the Rebbe's domain, and now you're outside of the domain. And same thing in Ruchni, you have like that. You talk about in a person's, let's say, Midas. You have Seichel and Midas. Where does Seichel end and where do Midas begin? It's not a Gashmizdika thing. It's not Seichel's in the head. Let's, for example, say, you're meshuchet about something. So you listen to someone's report, but you're meshuchet. You distorted a bit. So your midas came into play. It's not like a place where they came in. You don't have a physical place. That's where the midas. It's in concept. At some point, you heard, but you can't hear anymore because you're meshuchet. In other words, there's a place in conceptual where seichel and midas, where we work, when you process things. Or ideas. Think of ideas. You think of a chachma, a kudus ha-chachma. So you walk in the street or you're in the shower, you think of an idea. And that idea becomes a whole thing. You know what? I'm going to call somebody. I want to discuss this idea. And then the idea becomes a whole business plan. Where did the idea stop and where did the plan, it's all conceptual. It's not like, you can't put it on paper. You could say, on Sunday morning, you're an Aleph Iyar, I had a thought. But then, you see what I'm trying to say? So when you think of Atik and Arich and Chesed and Atzilus, you have to think like that. These are basically, they're all conceptual levels. So in Inyan, they're all everywhere. But the Pale, they're really different levels. One brings to the next. Chacham brings to Bina, Bina brings to Das, Das brings to Chesed, Vura, to Feres. You follow what I'm trying to say? And that's just conceptual space as opposed to physical space. So that's Ad Posove, that's what it means. Now when you say, for example, the Igul HaGodl, or Ein Sof, that is Mamawa Kol HaMetzias, then you're saying it's everywhere. There is no Ad Posove. You may not feel it. So for example, Chochmah Datzilus exists here, but it's not on our level. Ein Sof, for example, Seva Kalman exists here even on our level. We just don't relate to it. Understand? So there's different ways, there are different hamshachas. That's what it comes down to. There are things that we don't feel, but they're here. There are things that are not even here on our level, like that. Did I answer? Okay, so that's the question here. The end of the story is it just carried over the problem. You didn't create a mamutza. I mean, let's put it this way, like a mediation. You have a big machlekes. Okay, so I can't talk to you. So you make a representative, I'll represent. Your representative represents you, represents me. Pale Mamish, they may have a different personality, but they're still representing you. And then they don't get along. Because he's not closer to me than you are. Just makes it easier. Unless he offers some compromise. But then you could have also offered the compromise. You know what I mean? In other words, the problem is, what's going on here? Where's the mamutza? Is someone giving? Is there a compromise happening here? Just to say Atik it represents the Meitzel, and Adik represents the Netzolim, doesn't solve our problem. They get together. They're two different worlds. This is this is infinite. This is finite. So what do we achieve here? So obviously this is leading to plays that's going to get more complicated. How could something be something? We're looking for a level that is both. There must be plays that has a taste of both. So, yeah.
Couldn't the spiritual personality contain both, and it's not a problem? The paradox is not a paradox at that level.
Yeah, but firstly, we want to understand it in seichel. We want the whole point is that it should be understood in our term. God can connect to us, and we'll never understand how. The question is, can we relate? He's looking for an explanation from our perspective. How can we touch the infinite when it's so beyond us? So just to say that there's a place that's beyond paradox is true, but God wanted to dress it up in a way. In that case, you can get rid of the whole cosmic order altogether. And also, secondly, not just for us to understand, it's for us to actually retrace the steps. How do you implement it? Let's say, for argument's sake, no problem. The infinite, God is beyond finite and beyond infinite and connects them both, right? But how do we get there? What steps do we take? So he says that God gave us like stepping stones. That's the whole point of Kesser, that when you do certain things, you can actually go to that place as opposed to just, you follow what I'm saying? And that's why you need these levels. So you need a level where that is really going to be as close as possible between the two worlds.
But I'm just a little confused because these big ideas. I wouldn't say anything, but in Tanya it says that sometimes we're there and we just don't know it because of the grossness of our materiality, right? Maybe we could reach a level and just not know it. Maybe that's from God's
how do you? But the bottom line, there's a fundamental philosophical problem here.
Yes.
God is infinite and we're finite.
God is
Okay.
not infinite.
But that's not what but he's talking how God is infinite.
Okay.
We're not talking about that. That's beyond our understanding. We're talking about how can we relate to God in that way. God is not infinite and not finite, but we are. How does that, God not being infinite and not finite, connect with us on our terms? How can we climb to that place? We could understand God's that way, and He made it that way, but He created a whole ladder here.
So
for us to climb.
God had to give us a godly intellect that would be able to understand that at some level.
That's one way to look at it. You see, you're bringing other ideas into this. This is a mimer that's asking this question, and you're bringing ideas that you know from before.
I'm just trying to understand the question.
No, the question is basically it's a very simple one. An intermediary has to have part of this, part of that. He's asking the part of Elikus has nothing similar to the part that's the spheres of Atzilus. That's what he's asking.
Okay,
and just to say there's an intermediary, it doesn't just carries over the question of where's the bridge?
So
Where's
the question.
where look, the higher level of Keser is not counted in the spheres because it's part of Atzmus.
Right.
He says, how does that have any relationship with the spheres, with the lower part of Keser? Because the lower part of Keser is counted. So the problem is these two don't, Atik and Arach, have no place they meet. So all you did was you carried the Maitzil, the divine lower. You made Arach, but the bottom line is these two are as infinitely apart as Atzilus is from beyond Keser. Remember, he's talking about remember the whole issue is, Philip, Keser is a Mamutza, is an intermediary between that which is higher than Keser and which is lower. That's what we're talking about here. The question is, how is Keser that type of intermediary? That's the premise. How is it an intermediary? When at the end of the day, this part of Keser belongs to the infinite and this part belongs here. So where do they meet? That's the defined question here.
Can I just ask one more question?
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's really what he wants trying to understand, how this part of the intermediary. We're not talking about other dimensions of how the divine connects with the human. So go ahead.
Rabbi Hillel Parich, they were talking about him, and he said, a chassid can bring you elikus that can be grasped by the intellect, but a Rebbe can show you elikus as it is in itself. So that means that statement itself would mean that the Rebbe is the manutz. No?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you got it?
Then they said that Rabbi Hillel Parich was half and half.
Okay. So it's everyone in some way an intermediary. What are you, a quarter and 3/4?
Not even. Minus.
But
No, okay.
so that's our problem here. The kashem da atzmus ha'maitzlan etzoln hem bein arech just like the Maitzel and the Netzalim. Remember, the Maitzel means the source of Atzilus, that makes that where the spheres come from, and Netzalim refers to the spheres of Atzilus. Just like they are infinitely apart, Ein Areich, means completely apart. The same as the two levels of the Mamutzas that way. So back to this. So we're back to the same thing. The two parts of the Mamutzah are equally also infinitely apart, just like the two things they were supposed to connect. I gave the example before. Two people have two different opinions. You try to create intermediators. You have a representative of this one, and a representative of this one. How often do those two representatives just get back to the same problem? What'd you solve? We're still not in the same position. So you have to have something that's going to have part of this position and part of this position. Clear? Okay. And especially according to what we learned earlier in two chapters ago, that the concept of an intermediary is that there should be a shaykhus. There should be a connection and a relationship between the two. If there was no need for a connection, then this question wouldn't apply. The point here is that you need a connection. It's like a extension, a chibur, a connection, and a shaykhus between the two, between us and God. Okay. And how could such a connection be made when this mamutza, the higher level, is completely separate from the netzalim, How does it help us? The Rebbe sends us a shliach that's just like him. So we're back to square one. It didn't help. We want someone like us. And the higher level of Kesed is not like us. It's like Hashem. So what was accomplished here? So we're back to square one in that sense. Where's the mamutza of Kesed? That in this mamutza itself, in this intermediate, the lower level, is completely apart from the higher level. So just like, because the higher level is completely separate from and divided from the Netzalim, it's also divided from the Makar of those Netzalim, the source of them. So good. He's elaborating on this problem. And such a mamutza, how could there be such a connection? How could there be a chibur, a fusion and a shaykhus and a connection? This is only possible, such an intermediary. It should work. A true mamutza would have to be one that's not mamish, the higher level, and not the lower level. You need something that is not just the higher level. You need something that is both higher and lower. We need something that is not that it's not atzmus, but it has to have a taste of atzmus. And the same thing the other way around. Just like it's not the lower level, the hainu atzalim yesh boy mamish m'bchinas atachton.
So what's the answer? It has to be a third party
that has
the mamish both.
He's going to say it's chachmas tima. That's going to be a whole new sugya. Ultimately, yeah. He's going to say it's a new level that he's going to talk about chachmas tima. So chachma has a tzir of chachma, but it's a taste. He's basically going to find something that we have within our existence that has a real taste of atzmus. That's essentially what he's looking for.
That could be the
See, that's the key. And that listen, it says in other Maimarim different things as well. But the point is, what he's trying to lead to is that we need to find. He's looking for something in our lives that you can connect with. Because if it's not, basically, it's not you. It's not. Again, there's no problem to walk into Mr. Atik and say, "I'm here and I'm bottle," and that's it. We're talking about coming in with your personality. That's not the ikut here. And so you have to have something in your personality that relates to the Elikus. That's the hard part. I said that's what I said earlier. It's easier. Evident Odin is very easy. You tell the Rebbe, tell me what you want, I'll go do it. No, I don't want you. I want you to come with you. So the question is, me, I don't have any connection to this stuff. It's too beyond. That's what he's looking for. That's why he's elaborating like this. So you need something that's not atzmus, but is yesh boy b'chinas atzmus. And it's on, but nevertheless, it has a taste of the tach. And such a mamutza, you could say, times you do count with the spheres, and sometimes you don't count them with the spheres. That even though you counted from the level in it that's similar to the Netzolim, the Pamim hu atzme eina nimna. That same thing at times are not counted. Who's that?
Okay.
Huh? That same thing is the Pamim not counted, the Min Asfiris, Mitzad B'chinas Atzmos. Shabai. Because the level of Atzmos within it. You see you see what the kind of arichas is going on here? He's like, von alle Seiten. Nee.
Shabbos.
Like Shammai. Es kommen Sonntag, ja, der sagt.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
We met here.
Huh?
We met here.
Yeah. Or elsewhere.
Where was elsewhere?
I don't know, Manhattan.
Everywhere.
Wednesday nights.
Oh, very nice.
20 years ago.
It was like yesterday.
Zeit.
Huh?
Wow.
You know that story? The
Still
joke?
give you a Torah class?
Yes, I
A
know.
guy is
That's on
sitting by a
Tuesday.
table.
Thursday.
An immigrant. I yelled.
Beautiful.
Someone says,
Mayor.
Mozart
I'm
was a
sorry,
great
you want me- I can
composer.
show you.
No,
He
it's
lives next door to
I'm
me.
gonna listen.
You know this one?
No, what's
So the city is an immigrant. So someone says Mozart. Oh, Mozart, he lives down the block, and he's the Lower East Side. Everyone starts laughing. I say Mozart lives down the block. Mozart died. He says, yeah, I remember the Levaya. You know? They said, no, he died 200 years ago. He says, oh, wie die Zeit läuft.
Well,
How do you translate that?
yeah.
How time flies. Edel, verstehst du? Mozart, sagt ihm, well, yeah, Aristotle. He dacht, yeah, he lived on my block. He died 1,000 years ago. You know that one? You heard that one?
No, I just heard it now.
The Zeit läuft.
So it's going to be a couple.
It's the last line on page Shin Sadiches. And through such a mutza, you can have a chibur and sheiches. You see how important for us with the Rebbe is the Chmeis and Nefesh, though. He's trying to find a way for us to connect with Meitzel. What's going on? Because the lower level in this mamutza is mamish like the Netzalim of Vesel Sfiris. Kemuven, that's not literally the Netzalim. And the higher level is mamish kamay atzmus. Is literally like atzmus. Mokam ena atzmus mamish. But still not atzmus mamish. So this new mamutza, we're talking about mamutza. Yeah. Very good, Mayor. So, but there's a problem, like he's saying. So we need a new level here, some level in Keser that has, it's not, Atik is Meitzel. Arich is Netzolim. You need something that has both, or else you haven't moved everything closer. Follow? And the point here is not from God's perspective. It's from God's perspective how He created a system that we can relate to. You know? And we can relate to, so we need something in our world. He's ultimately going to say, it's Chachmas T'mah, he's ultimately going to say it's Torah. When you learn Torah, you're learning it with your seichel. Same seichel you use when you're learning physics. Same seichel you use when you're doing business. But you're learning God's wisdom. That would be an example that has a taste of both. But if Torah was, when you open the Torah you didn't understand anything, you expected just to stand in awe of it, it would be like Atik. It wouldn't have that, you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. You follow what I'm saying? I'm just giving an example. I'm not,
No, thank you.
You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe we'll stop here. Maybe not. Maybe just
Oh, yeah,
maybe
this
we'll
was-
learn a few more
This
lines.
was, I hope this was
Ah,
perfect. It's milk cups.
Yeah.
Kuf, what is it? Kuf Tzadik.
Yeah. We anticipated. We're in Perek Kuf Tzadik Vav, but we are
Shin Sadi K.
page Shin Tzadik Tes.
Oh, test, right.
Oh, you want further?
Of course. Do you think we're going
Guys,
backwards?
no, and since he said that, did he speak about 3 levels in cancer over here?
That was last Perek.
No. So what's the middle level? Atik and Arif.
It's going to be now around 150 pages.
explain
And I'm
that.
going to explain this.
So
It's going to be Chachmas Tima. It's basically going to be the unconscious mind. So it's mind, but it's unconscious. You understand? That's what it's going to come down to be. This Hemshah, you understand, is you're talking about 144 Maimarim, plus a whole book that just he wrote without not saying it. You're talking about it's 3 times the size of Samalabov. So and said over 4 years, and he builds. It's a very you're coming in one little piece of it. So this is a whole. I mean, I'm going to start writing them. I'm going to write a summary of it all, but I'm also learning it. So it's the picture. As I said before when I started. This is the one mamutza. He's already spoke 4 mamutza before this. Because this is just a mamutza between Atzilus and that's what's higher than Atzilus. There's a mamutza between that light and the containers. There's the mutza before the tzimtzum and after the tzimtzum. The mutza from the big vision of Ak and the small picture of the universe. So there's a lot of intermediaries we're dealing with here. He's just dealing now with one of them. The Kesser one.
He's doing good. I'm gonna borrow him.
You get it?
That's the highest level, highest point. It's going to the point of Atmos, right? The next point is Atmos.
No, not really. This is not Atzmus. I don't call this Atzmus. No.
Tomorrow morning.
Ur,
at 7
Ur.
o'clock.
Here, tomorrow.
Tomorrow 7 o'clock. Is that right?
We didn't
So when you talk
disagree.
Yeah. This was
in class, when you talk about Moses,
So you want to get up so early?
Fine, 7 to 8.
7 to 8.
Yeah.
I'll be here, it's sure.
Oh, that's good. It's exciting.
It's easier.
Probably the way.
It's hard. Yeah, okay.
Double the way.
Anyway, I'll call hu b'mahus echad, and it's all one mahus. Valkain. And that's why this level will be able to create a chibur and shaykhs between the Netzalim and Asmus. V'zeh EF Shali is b'bchinas EF Shalemer or EF Shali is b'bchinas Atik v'arich. This cannot be on the level of Atik and Arich. Shem Beis Madregas moved all this canal, as we learned earlier, because there's 2 separate levels. In another place it explains the b'chinas Atik. Ima yeshuzel hatokas ha'atzmus mukal mokem keshababah b'chinas kesa enikam b'chinas hamayitz latzmi. He's asking a question on himself right now. In other places it explains that Atik, even though it's hataka, it's how Atzmus is. Remember, Atzmus used here is not Atzmus that we usually talk about, the essence of God. Here we're talking about Atzmus hamaitzel, talking about the source of Atzilus, basically, just for the record.
And Hataka you call is replicated or
Hataka is no, Hataka's Atzmus means the other way around. It's netak, it's separate from anything lower
No, but
than
here he's saying something else. That Hataka
No.
in the positive that it's like Atmos. Yeah.
But it's how Atzmus is netak is separate from that which is lower than Atzmus. That's how he's saying it. Yeah, go read the page before.
when you use the word level,
Oh, the other way. He's saying here's the other way around. Even though that it's separated, but it's still part of the matzah.
No. Hatakas Atzmus means how Atzmus is separate from everything
There's 2
lower than
ways. You said
Atzmus.
before last time we went, there was 2 things, 2 sides. One is like he's replicating, it's like a copy of it.
No, that's not what he's talking here. No.
And here he's saying it's separate. Hataka, like Maitik, Vayetik, so he brings a Lashon.
Okay, maybe 1 second. Maybe he's saying both here. Okay, because Hataka Avdallah Legamri. Here, before in the page before, he's talking about Hataka Avdallah Legamri.
Yeah.
It's completely separate. It could be Hatakas Atzmus also means that it's a copy of Atzmus. Makom Mokom Kashabab B'chinas Keser. When it comes into Keser, it's not exactly like the Maitzah.
Right, so that's what
So
he's saying.
this is a student.
So I'm saying here he's saying that you could think that it is like the Maitzel. So even though it's mamash like a copy, it's like just he moved to a different place, but it's so it's the Maitzel. So he's saying no, it's not like the Maitzel mamash. I'm saying now he's talking about the positive.
In another place, that's how it's discussed, which seems to contradict somewhat, or seems to have not be consistent with what we just learned. That Atik does not become closer. It is part of the Maitzah. The primis abo, primis atik mamish.
Right.
Like for example, Chachma of Atzilus, you say the inner part of Chachma of Atzilus is one thing with the inner part of Atik. Primis abo, primis atik. Mokom mokom ene kumei b'chinas primis atik, the yod of leis yad klal. So, and this is not like the deepest part. It's still it's lower than, and not like actually primis atik, which is something that's completely beyond our knowledge. We don't know it, and it doesn't even know itself. The way it comes into Chachma and the primis of Chachma, you could reach through it through the shlila the mitzvahs leisaseh. You can only reach through it not through doing something positive, only through doing something negative, like these.
There's no
All the way
direct.
on the other wall.
There's no direct access. In other words.
So the only way you can reach through it is through not doing something, through loisaseh. We say lav kaidim lahein. That's why we say the no's come before the yeses, like it is explained in another place. So you could say that atik, even though it's level of atzmos, mokom mokim harinasu b'chinas mamutza. Nevertheless, you could say it becomes a mamutza. The atzmos hamaisel ain't a begeder mamutza. Because Atzmus HaMaisel itself is higher than any type of intermediary. But Atik is already removed a level from there, and therefore it is closer to the Natzolim, it's closer to us.
Because the fact that it's in Kesser, that's why. Right?
Well, till now he was saying otherwise. He was saying
Right.
that Atik was completely removed. Now he's saying that in another place, it talks like that.
He's saying it's a kasha.
It's not a kasha.
No, he says it's a kasha, but it's not a kasha because Bepele it is separated.
I don't know what he's saying. He didn't answer yet. Till now he's saying that you need to have the mamutza cannot be atik because atik is so much part of the maitzel. Now he's saying we see another place that explains that atik is lower than the maitzel, and therefore seemingly it could be a mamutza because it's a lower level. Yeshlemer. The Zehu, the Be'etz Chaim, Shar Memal Seper Gimel, Shemidav Bin Mamutza Shebekesser, could say that this is what it says in Eitz Chaim when he explains the Mamutza of the Kesser, how Kesser is an intermediary, Sheyesh Bo B'chinas Ma'atzilas, B'chinas Netzalis, Chasu V'shneim Nikri Kesser. And when he talks about the Mamutza, that of Kesser, that it has from the level of Atzilas, and it has the level of Netzalis. That means that higher than Atzilus, and both of them are called Keser. The Yesh Leimer Kavana, what does it mean? She'ein zeh b'chinas atzmus ha'maitzel. He's not talking about the atzmus of the maitzel. And that's not b'chinas Atzilus. He's not talking about Atzilus, he's talking about the middle ground. So from this, we could think that Atik, therefore, is a step away from atzmus, and therefore can be a mamutza. Mukom mokum ein zeh maspik adayin. Nevertheless, this explanation is not enough. Because however you twist it, Atik, even when it comes down a level, is still Hatokav Avdala Matzilus. It's removed and separate from Atzilus, and that's not at all in its own in the Muhus of Atzilus. V'nikra lo yoda shebatzmusi eina Muhus yidua klal, v'mel lo yisyada klal. And it's called a level that's not known, because in Atzmus there's no Muhus of being known. Therefore, lo yisyada klal, it can be known and is not known to even to himself. V'zeu ma shemuvdu legamri man Netzolim. This is a level that's completely separate from the Netzolim. The ma'achas she'enei Muhus yidua klal, gam ba'atzmei. Since it's not on a level that can be known even to himself, he doesn't know it. You're not even aware of it yourself. He's a level that's completely removed from the Netzolim, the spheres of Atzilus. Which are in a state of Yudua, they're known. You could be aware of them. And even though this level of Atik is not Mamish Atzmus, because by Atzmus, you can't even say he's removed from the Netzolim. But here, but with Atik, at least as it comes into Keser, you could say the word removed Well, derech hamavur being haflod erin sof shemufla min hagiluyim. He's giving a comparison. He's like saying that even though it's not atzmus mamash, because when it comes to atzmus, you can't even say it's removed. As al derech, where it says somewhere else that you talk about the awesomeness of the infinite light, you say it's completely apart from all giluyim, from all the revelations. For who inyan yediyas hashlila? This is yediyas hashlila. You can't touch it directly. You can only touch it by through process of elimination, through saying it's not something. You can't say it's this. You can only say it's not this. The zeshayar be'erin sof shebechinas shaychus al kaponim al giluyim. You could say that only on the level of erin sof that has some connection to giluyim. So you could say it's not wisdom, it's not chesed, it's not this, but it has some connection. Aval mashe in the bechinas shaychus klal. Something that's completely apart. Something that's completely apart, you can't say is even beyond the gili. Mufla. Completely, how do you say mufla? Wondrous and, beyond the gili, because it's not even in that level. Kamoy kain, same thing you can say in ha'atoka, of atik. The same thing you can say ha'atoka, the dafka kasher asm, babchinis keser. Va'atik shayach lema ba'in ha'atoka. The same thing you could say about atik. That atik is not that level where it's completely beyond. It comes to the kesser. So there you could say it's a part. Nevertheless, it's still apart from the Netzolim. And since it's apart from the Netzolim, it's how do you say it's a mamutz? And whereas arich is a source to the Netzolim, v'neda u'murgish ba'atzmei u'b'Netzolim, and it's known and sensed and felt in itself and also to the Netzolim, it's completely, infinitely apart from Atik. In addition to that, the Gam L'Gaba Netzolim had B'chinas Arich Imeyesim B'Kedim Ein Zem Muhusa. Additionally, even Arich, which is the source of the Netzolim, it's still not their Muhus. It's not the same personality. That in Netzolim, Ikram B'chinas Chochma. The Netzolim, the main thing in them is, primary thing in them is Chochma. The Gam Hamidus Datzilus and Daf Hamidus Al Pia Chochma. Because the Midas of Atzilus, even the Midas are also follow according to the direction of Chochma. B'chinas Arich is a B'chinas Aratzon Shalamaylam HaChochma. Arich, on the other hand, is willpower. And willpower is much higher than Chochma. You can't compare will to wisdom. So it's not the same Mahus. Ve'ech yiyazeh B'chinas Mamutza. She's asking an additional question. Atik can't be a mamutza because Atik, even though it's removed from Atzmos, it's still muvdal and netak. It's completely separate. But even Arich, which is a source for the Netzolim, it's already closer to, but it's still a different muhus, a different personality. And how could this be? How could even Arich serve as a mamutza when it too is in a different muhus? Even though it's much closer to the Netzolim, it's a different muhus. Who b'chinas atzmus, she b'chinas avdola garmen and solid. Like we said, after that, the higher part of keser is atzmus that's havdola, completely separate from the netzolim. U'madrega tachtenu be'ena rech l'gaba madrega al-yena. And the lower level is completely separate apart from atik, from the higher level. V'hi gufa gamkein in mus netzolim, and it's also not the same mahus of the netzolim. Adkan the question. Then he begins the answer. So we might as well do the answer till the end of the Perek. Should we do it till the end of the Perek?
I'm in no rush.
Okay.
I don't understand the question.
You don't understand the question.
No.
He added a few points here that I'll just sum up. First of all, he said, remember, the question is, a mamutza, a real intermediary, cannot be manipulation. As I said before, if you have a disagreement between two parties, and each of them appoints somebody to talk to each other. My people talk to your people. Because we're too emotional, we're too this. So it should be calm. We have a representative of this side, representative of this. They sit down and they talk. And if they both remain simply total representative of their party, they may talk calmer, but they're not going to get anywhere. Because there are issues involved. I'm not talking about emotional only. We're talking about there are real fundamental disagreements. Property, who does it belong to?
Mechitza should be.
Right, exactly. So I'm using example of Moshe that Moshe Bashan can relate to. That's why I'm okay. So, we could all relate to. Okay. So you have here. One second. Let me just shut this off here. So what happens? All you did really was you moved over the problem. Now, okay, the representatives come back. Very, very calm. Let's say everyone, no fight, no war, but we can't come to terms. We both stand, because representative is representing his position. So we really don't have an intermediary here. Unless somebody comes and says, you know what, we'll make a compromise. We're going to have a little of what you want, a little of what you want. You're both not getting it all. Then you start to talk. Then you have some solution.
But that's not really what's between Eibishter.
Now I'm just giving a marshal.
I'm saying, but it's,
Well, let me finish. Let me here a second. 1 second. The key thing here is if one gives in completely to the other, it's also not a mamutza. Then one, capitulated. Which I'm saying maybe works in mediation, but it's not. You really didn't create a relationship between two because one gave in, and that's it. One lost, one won. We're talking about a win-win, where both parties go away. No, I'm just using it as a motion because it's very important here. So he says his problem here is like this: the Eibishter is completely infinite. We're not talking about a disagreement, obviously. We're talking about different muhus. It's a completely different world. You're talking about an Eibishter beyond us. It's so much easier to say, I will never relate to this entity. I'll do whatever he wants. Let him reward me. But it's like a child in a school. I don't have a relationship with the principal. You want me to do this? I'll do this. But we're talking about you want a relationship. I said like husband and wife, father and son. The relationship. So the Abish is not asking us. You know what? Give up your life. Fast all day. Don't work. Learn and annihilate yourself for my will. That's not what we want. It's not Islam here. You're giving up your life. He wants you to live. Wants you to be a personality. He wants you to use your keiches and not his. So the question is, you want me to be me, and you want me to be connected with you. You're not my. You're a world that I don't relate to. That's the dilemma here. So where is there an in between? And remember, don't bring in anything you know from before. You can start answering me. We have a neshama that's at Salam Alakim. Of course, that's an answer, but that's what you get these answers from this mind. We're learning it from the source here. The question is, how do these two worlds come together?
Is the question also? I'm just trying to clarify the question. Is the question also? Is this even possible? Is he has asked that as well?
No, that's a given. It's possible.
It's possible
because God said it's
without
possible.
Anything additional,
right?
The two of them can actually.
Yeah. The question is how. The question is how.
Okay.
And remember, it's not just a philosophical question.
No,
it's once you know the how, then what do you do? What am I supposed to do? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to connect with you? You're shalei be'erech atzmus. You created everything. You're a different type of existence. Now remember, there's a lot of levels of this Mimutzoyim we talked about. Here, what he's concerned with here is mostly the issue of the 10 spheres of Atzilus. Remember, there's Chochmah, Bina, Das. Now the Eibishter is not Chochmah, Bina, Das. Gendik. He's not. You could say the Eibishter has Chochmah, but you say he does not have Chochmah. But you don't call the Eibishter Chochmah. Instead, like you could say you have Chochmah, Bina, Das. You have arms and legs. Does God have arms and legs? He created it. Does he have the power to have it? Yeah, but he's not. You can't define him. You could say, Hu mekeme shalelim ve'ena elam mekeme. Meaning everything in existence is divine. Comes from Hashem, but you can't say existence defines the Eibishter. That's what Spinoza said. In other words, the Eibishter is not the sun. It's not the world is God and the God is world. God is the world, but the world is not God. God is much more beyond. So how do I, with my arms and legs and my Chachma Bina, of Atzilus now. We're talking about the Gedusha of Atzilus. We're not talking about Yetzer Hara. This is not a question how with my Yetzer Hara I connect to the Eibishter. That's a whole different discussion. We're talking about you're a perfect human being, but you are B'tzir, you're a B'tzir. You have a head and a heart. You think and you feel. God does not think and feel. So the level beyond that, so that's a Maitzil here, is L'mayla Midi. You can't say we know him. You don't even use the word knowing on that level. He just is. But we are a level of Chochmah Bina Das. So there's the concept. So we're told Keser. Kabbalah says, as he brings here, Keser is the mamutza between this God that's beyond Chochmah Bina Das and the God and the world that is made up of and Atzilus, which is made up of Chochmah Bina Das. Remember, we're not talking beyond now. We're not talking about physical. We're not talking about Yetzer Hara. We're not talking about evil. We're talking about simply finite spheres called Chachma Bina Das and an infinite that is not connected. That like we say every Friday. Chacham v'lo b'chachma yediyah. The Eibishter is not less machshava tvisa beklal. No mind can understand God. We all know that. So how could a mind, no matter how great it is, ever connect to a God that's beyond mind? Basically, Chachma is Bina Das. So we're talking about even the perfect mind, even at tzaddik. Good question. And you want a relationship. So we told Kesed is the mumutza. What's Kesed? So he says Kesed has two parts. One is Atik, that represents God that's beyond. And Arich represents Chochmah Bina Das that's here. That's the part. So we solved that problem. We have an intermediary. Kesed connects Atzilus and higher. The Rebbe Rashab, however, says that sounds nice on the out surface, but you start dissecting it, it's nicht sehr portion.
So what's the mumut between Atik and Arich then? That's he's asking.
Exactly. It doesn't solve the problem because you're saying Atik is so similar to the God that's beyond everything. Arich is similar to us, that is defined by structure. So what did you achieve? What you did was you gave us a name called Kesed. But when bottom push comes to shove, when Atik and Arich speak to each other, they got the same problem. Atik represents a world that's beyond the Chochmah Bina Das. And I should just add, he said this in the previous chapter, that it says in some places that when you count the spheres on the external level, you count Arich, Kesed. When you don't count them, you count Das, and you don't count Atik. In other words, Atik is outside of the world of spheres. So what did you achieve? That's what he's asking. Now he adds, he says in some places, it says, that Atik is removed and is closer. Because Atzmus is, you can't even say that you don't know him. You can't even say he's removed. He's so far apart, you can't even say he's removed. It's like you can't say on Seichel, I can't touch Seichel. It's not even that, you know, you can say, I can't reach a higher level, but you can't say on certain things, you can even say removed. Atik you could say is removed. He says, but that's not sufficient to answer the question, because Atik still is so much part of Elokus, is still not close in any way. It doesn't bring Elokus closer to the world of Chacham. And now we added now that even Arich is like Ratzon, the Ratzon of Hashem. So it's true, it's closer to existence, but it's still a different Muhus, it's a different personality. So the bottom line is, we're back to square one in a way. How do these two worlds connect? A God that's beyond Chochmah Bina Das, and we, or the world that lives in a world of Chochmah Bina Das, Chesed, Vura, Tiferes. Okay. Now, I should just add this point. You could say, and if you want to ask a question, you could say, 1 second. Okay, I maybe not be able to connect to that part of the Eibishter, but when I do Chesed, Mahu Rachum Afata Rachum. The Eibishter does Chesed with us, and we do Chesed with others. So we have a relationship. That's not what he's trying to resolve. That's a relationship how the Eibishter is in the world of Atzilus. He wants a connection to the Eibishter higher than Atzilus, which they say. Not just enough to say.
Very, very key point. You just
Right, exactly. So to have a relationship with the Eibishter, like you give tzedakah, the Eibishter l'cha Hashem has tzedakah. Hashem gives tzedakah, you give tzedakah. That part is how Atzilus connects with Elokus. But we're talking about right, but the Eibishter. In other words, he wants a connection with the Eibishter how he is beyond, and that's the problem. That's the dilemma.
Yeah.
You all right?
Allergies, you know what that is.
You want something?
It's good.
I'm gonna let Val know. He needs adrenaline. Maybe a story.
No, I have here this. It's the non-drug Claritin.
It's okay. It's gonna be done. It's all in mine.
It doesn't look like it.
Then
Wait 2 minutes, you'll see.
Then you got major problems.
It works for me.
Okay, I'm just playing buttons.
I'm from the same family as you.
We all are.
No, but I'm closer.
Oh yeah.
Listen,
No.
You didn't know that we're related?
No.
Not
Mayor.
only for marriage?
Mayor,
No.
let me just tell you.
What's
When
that?
if I have a real, if
Ask him all right.
it's a bad allergy day, I simply take a Claritin and solves it for the day. That's it.
I don't know.
What's the side effect?
Nothing. It's not drowsy. Mayor will tell you all the side effects.
Let me ask you a question.
Let's put it this way: it makes it easier. I know I'm not a guy. I'm not a pill popper. I don't take pills. I only do it when I'm desperate. Sometimes it gets. As I got older, the allergies got much better. I used to be miserable summers, and then you had to take things called the Seldane, and they were all drowsy. They put you to sleep. You know, they made you drowsy. So
Simon, let me ask you.
it was a pain.
Simon.
Thank God it went most of it, but I had time. And I know Rosh Hashanah by Tkiyas, whatever. See, before the Tkiyas, we would go to the bathroom, you'd see everybody has allergies because everyone was packing up on their tissues. Because Rosh Hashanah was still the season, September. It was mid-August through September. That was 90 days, basically. Not 90 days, 45 days.
Wow.
Shrek.
Okay, thank you.
When I had bad mamish
Yeah, you outgrew it, Baruch Hashem.
Huh?
You outgrew it.
When you get older, they say it goes away. But now, the latest season lately,
All right, and then
it comes. It's like
You know why
menopause.
you go out of it?
Uh,
Better, your immune system gets weaker.
Thanks a lot for
It's the only
everything.
reason.
I will talk to you soon. I really appreciate it.
It's the only reason I grow out of it. Anyway, Simon, let me ask you a question.
It's not dangerous, B'chal, but it's such a nuisance. Your whole plumbing
I
here.
hear you.
The nicer the day, the worse it was. You know what I mean? Because it's the breeze.
Oh,
Everyone enjoying.
It's like any other, by the way,
It's like that, I know.
I know.
Same thing tickling your throat.
Oh, thank you. I
Nose,
appreciate it.
when the Evan, when it's sneezing, when the eyes, the rubbing of eyes, became a sugar then.
Simon, is this we're talking about? Let's say if we take it down on a very technical level, like a technology level, we're talking about let's say in communication, unidirectional or bidirectional. He's trying to find like both. That there's a communication going both ways equally.
Yeah.
no, he's trying
Yeah.
to find out how to get into the palace when nobody goes in.
No.
That's what he's trying to say here.
No,
How do you-
but
I
you
just
both.
think, yeah.
You're very
No,
good.
because we
Very
have a
good.
broadcast.
But his point is, you also want God to relate to us in our place.
Yeah.
It goes both
yeah,
ways.
yeah.
How he is in his palace when nobody goes.
That's basically how do you connect back and
It's,
forth?
you got it right. Absolutely. This is not how God is outside the palace where we are. And you're doing chesed, he's
Chachma being in the essence
Yeah.
readers, whatever.
So Lahir, I just want to say Lahir.
Very good. That's excellent. That's a very excellent way to put it. How he is in his own. Yeah. That's a relationship. It's not a relationship just like, in business. He wants a full
You
relationship.
said the story the other week, or we heard it there, that somebody asked the Rebbe, Zabinski.
Doing mining yarns also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I
It's
told
like-
the story. I heard it from my shveta, yeah.
Music.
Yeah. Remember, even after this relationship, don't worry, there's parts of the Ebershtivus and bleiben noch Hals fight.
I'm
So who would you say from our
But it brings us
from
good.
our community that we could look up that has this relationship
The Rebbe.
with God? So you said the Rebbe.
There are probably unsung heroes that are sitting quietly and you don't hear from them. Trust me, anyone that's in the public eye is probably not that person. Because Emerson people definitely have
So a guy like
recognition.
you said the Rebbe. The Rebbe.
I see
Some guy like
sometimes.
Nemanov on Sterling Street.
There's a guy as a Peretz Fegenson.
Yeah.
So Chassidim,
Yeah.
that are generally they're doing their thing. I mean, I don't know them all very well.
Very well said. Very well
The
said.
derech klal, that's what it is. To someone in the public eye, the problem is public.
Manchmal Peretz as a
Probably good, a good chinuch, you had ein gewurzelt type of you say this dick. He never got caught up in the power game. Of
Never.
das geht seiner Führer,
I
verstehst?
see. I can't hear.
Yes, these things, and even the Mayusa, people sometimes, want to make a mark, but then inevitably, you go into the public sphere, you know what the Ragachover said? They came to him to be a part of a vad. Ragachover got. So he said he can't. So they said, why not? A person like you, and not because he was afraid, but listen to his answers, the made the answer. I can't. But the guy like you will. He says. They say, well, because it's corrupt. He said, that's why we need a guy like you. Everyone will trust. There's no question that you're not for sale, which is true. Because he was a Ishteda, through and through, like a Rebbe type. He was not a Rebbe, but a Gon. I mean, he was actually he was not a tzaddik. He was a Gon. So he said, I can't. So he said, why not? Because you're forcing me to have to resolve a machlekes between a Bavli and a Yerushalmi. I can't do that. What's the machlekes? The machlekes says that when a person is Eisik B'tzorchei Tzibur, so in Bavli it says the Torah is Mizbareches,
He's blessed.
is blessed. No, it's Tzeichut Tzibur, and in Yerushalmi it says Mishtameres. The Torah is Gehit, but doesn't add more. In other words, becoming a public figure, it's amazing. The Rebbe brings it and says,
Who's Mishtameres? I mean,
now let me explain. So it says when you become a public figure, talking about something good, like representing the community or something.
no?
Yeah, or whatever it is. According to I think maybe it's Faked Bavli, whatever. And one Bavli it says that your Torah will be blessed. In other words, because you're helping others, God will make sure that the hour that you learn Torah will not be lost. You'll only get the gain.
It will be potent as 10 hours.
Right, exactly. Whereas in the Yerushalmi it says that it'll only be protected, meaning you're not going to get more, but you're not going to get less. And that he doesn't want to, in other words, it will be compromised. Because if you'd be learning, it would take a grow.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to get into this machlekes.
Right,
Okay.
very
Very good, Gizak. But what does it mean? Let's talk more. What does it mean practically? It means that at the end of the day, when you get involved in any type of lead with people, there's going to be difference of opinion. I'm not even getting into corruption, and you cannot. That's why the Rebbe brings this began Mordechai. It says at the end of the Megillah, that Mordechai was Rotze l'reiv echov, because the Sanhedrin, he was accepted by most of the Sanhedrin, because this is the Machlekes Bavli Yerushalmi. Since he was an Esek, he saved the Jews. That was beautiful. But B'Pleil Mamash Sanhedrin, he those hours he couldn't learn. So that's why it says that it's a mishtameres, but he was not mizbareches. So not everybody. In other words, there's nothing wrong with what he did. On the contrary, he saved lives. But when a person saves lives, doesn't mean that he's still the same level of scholarship. Not dafka. So my point is that the fact. I mean, I'm going back to our thing here, especially today.
I'll add you another guy to your list.
There's
Our
another.
list. Levitin from New Haven. Better Levitin.
Yeah,
He's a genuine good.
yeah.
pure soul.
There's a lot of.
Self-made, meaning you know who made him? His wife. And you don't understand. She was Kesser.
Related to you, right?
Yeah, it's a Kalmason.
Yeah.
She's a baby Shultanya. Anyways, go ahead.
So, I unfortunately today, if you get involved in the kehillah, any kehillah, or rabbanos, if you could be the purest guy. At some point, unless you don't take a stand, you get yourself into. You're going to be not liked by somebody, because people are not Yerushalayim. They don't like if you rule against them, and it's almost impossible to navigate without a problem. So I think real Chassidus Shidduch will stay away. Just like, even going into chinuch in the yeshivas, the cream of the crop are not going to go. It gets too embroiled. There's power, who's in control. So you can't really feel. I mean, you don't feel you're going to make a mark.
To put it mildly, it comes down really to genes. That, like the Rebbe says, a Rav was born in Kabbalah Gvura, all the time looks din. And a person that's born in Kabbalah Chesed, all the time looks the same things with teachers, the same thing with anything else.
So I don't know. I mean, it's a big dilemma. It's a dilemma. I'll tell you, because the question you ask, I hear from Bochum who asked me this question. They say, well, who are you supposed to look to?
My role model?
You heard what I said yesterday about the Seil Chara.
Yeah, you said you couldn't say it better. I looked up to, basically, when I was young, looked up to my father, basically as a role model, and the Rebbe. These were my two role models.
Okay.
And then you need mazel. Everything is mazel.
Because if you hit the wrong person, you can get yourself good trouble, and it could hurt you very. Yeah.
You know, it's the Meisim, the Rebbe. Who did Rebbe speak about that a guy, Mitnach, he came to, I want to learn with you. She said, I'm fragen beim Rebbe. My Rebbe, that fragen, I allow you to learn. And then he found out it's the Samach Mem, he went to the Rebbe. So he said, how do you know to ask? He said, because I was a small 5-year-old kid. I came home, my stepmother hit me because I took a piece of kugel without asking. So she hit me. So you had to lose your mother in order that you shouldn't fall into Samach Mem. Never heard this story from Rebbe? No?
Maybe vaguely.
It's interesting that in the previous ice, this was one ice that we learned that
It was on ice.
Mavi's,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to just say one thing. One second.
He mentioned that the lowest person could reach the highest levels in Kuf Tzaddik. And the bottom line was hard work. Hard work.
What are you looking at?
Kuf Tzaddik. This is an interesting. Kem Shubanet Tzolim, K'moikenu Gam B'Neshamas.
Oh yeah, okay.
Shar Neshamas Im Elikim, Gam HaNeshamas Dibiyah.
Yeah.
Even the lower Neshamas. And
Okay.
and he goes on, if you look,
Yeah.
and
This is
the
what
bottom
he-
line
this is
was
what-
hard work. Hard work can get you to the highest levels because eventually the highest levels have to do with Rosa de Liba. Seichel is not the highest level. Seichel takes everything and it what's the
It dilutes.
it dilutes the power. Anything. People get emotional, it's uncontrolled. The second it becomes seichel, it becomes controlled, it becomes watered down. So at the end of the day, Re'usa de Liba can reach the highest levels. And it's interesting, like, talking about a person that today that we can relate to. I don't know if you knew him, but Reuven Dunin. Reuven Dunin was a person.
I've seen him.
Reuven Dunin was a person that had both extremes. On one hand, he was, and he wasn't afraid to take a stand. Like he got himself into the dirtiest.
You know, who's a very great guy. He passed away right after Gimel Thomas. Slonim, what's his name?
Moshe Slonim.
Yeah, he was I don't know him at all, but his energy when he, like he was a lamplighter, I would say. No, how would you say it?
Yeah.
Heard about him.
Never heard of it.
I heard about him. I heard about my father talks about him.
He's like a Reuven Dunin.
It's interesting. It has to do with hard work, and hard work. It talks about it has nothing to do with neshama. So, you can be a. The line starts by you.
What does the hard work mean?
Hard work is what we try running away from.
Like hard work means sitting and learning a couple of hours a day.
Either that for whoever
What
has
if
to
that's
sit and
easy?
learn.
What if that's easy for you?
Right.
Is that hard work?
No. Hard work is hard work. Is
You
you don't want to do it.
You know who works on himself also in the most beautiful way? Sri Lang's son.
Arya.
Not Arya. Arya is a
Colby.
shliach. Colby. Every day his business is about a pair of tefillin, and he goes up a couple of hours with tefillin. You look at his face, you see a light, an oid, like he's connected to the top. Yeah, businessman, very quiet, shy, still. Beautiful, beautiful to see.
Yeah, it's good that you point this out because it's like what he's saying here. That the neshamas,
Vienna is also a Siddish. Yeah, there's a lot of it. Oh, yeah,
You have to give up a lot of comfort
and
when
the
you
budget
start
is
getting involved. Like it's naturally we're selfish, and even our avodas Hashem even is also selfish. It's where do we enjoy? What makes us feel good? What makes us feel accomplished? What satisfies us? And at the end of the day, when it comes to really stepping up to the plate, you have to get involved with things with ugly things. In other words, you have to do what's needed, and if you have to clean a toilet, and you have to start getting involved.
My aunt Rachel began. She was sewer backed up. Middle of the show. So I had to go downstairs and clean out the showers and the bathroom. Forget about it. She's, Maisha, yes, als ik het dan nog zo zorgen. Yes. Yes.
What I said yesterday, I wanted to say, I think everyone here in this community, even people who have got geweest was, gefallen, everyone in their own way, and everybody must have got a stick on the, we all have the chet etzadas in our lives.
Nah, we made out of plastic. Nobody sings.
Okay.
You can't even sing.
Yeah. But you know what I mean to say? But everyone, I believe, has a part of them, lifnei achet. Like the innocent part. People moment you with the Rebbe, Fabrengen, memories where, you for that moment, you were in a different place. Everyone has that. There's no question in my mind. Even people I fundamentally disagree with, and I look, and in a way that is, it's a driving force in their lives. The problem is you got Meshuchit, that part also becomes, like mistakes in time, you take the Reishei Shel Melech, the Haksta Secharain, so you even use it for Ketan, you think, I have the Rebbe, and I have no doubt you do, but does the Rebbe have you? You know what I mean? Is the Rebbe on your terms, or you on the Rebbe's terms? And that's what happens. You get a little smarter, and you start saying, that's what the Rebbe wants, and then you can distinguish between what you want, what the Rebbe wants, So, but everyone has that part, and you can see it. You can see it by certain Fabrengens. You see Anigani saying everybody can go there. Problem is, a lot of layers of garbage and grime has gathered. On the, like they say, moss has gathered on the stone. So the Esis Achkika are there. You ever go, remember the bungalow con used to discover a stone and you dig up and suddenly there's letters there. Everyone has the Esis Achkika. And that's the real problem. That's a tragedy here, because it's one thing with Kemus Gesendem Rebbe, and you never had that pure thing. Okay, you were not zeicher to see the Gilei Lakus. But people stood by Rebbe's Tchiyas Shefer or Simchas Torah. I have no doubt. Everybody, even people, they had a moment that's under the neshama. The question is, you're talking about people who and the Rebbe explained, times like Rosh Hashanah, I think we did go on the Bissel into the Rebbe's Cheder Pnima, not Chilus, Svirus. On the Rebbe's terms. He showed a little of himself, or Simchas Torah, or Yom Kippur, by the Bracha Chves. The problem is how many people can know how to generate it right now and can bring it into life. That's the thing. That is very rare. So everyone had it, and I'm sure moments when you're tanigen or this and with your children, you can go back there, but to bring it to Chai Yem Yem in the world of politics and in the world of Parnosa, very few. I remember sitting one Friday night in Moscow. The only time I went was 2 years ago, Yud Shvat. They brought me there. So it was very nice. I bet Lazar, and it was the only time that Levayev came to the Marina Russia. He had a place in Moscow, but it wasn't close to where Marina Russia is the shul.
I was there.
Okay, so So Friday night, me and him slept in the 2 rooms away from me because we both stayed by Bet Elazar's house. So Friday night, when I Shenef Abraham, Bet Elazar, Levayev, myself, and it was when he lost all, when he was at his lowest point. And they got good shikar. So I heard a lot of things that was very interesting to me. No, nobody's perfect in this world, but this guy Levayev was giving without him even, he didn't even want to know until the end of the year or half a year because we're talking about $4 or $5 million a month. You get it once in your lifetime, you're happy. A month, and for years, it's just an enormous amount of money. I don't know what he was making, but and basically they've got in 60, 70 cities. See, everywhere else in the world, every city you give them a little, and then you're supposed to start taking care of yourself. But there's so many cities. And unfortunately, because of the recession, they had to close down some mazes because they simply didn't have it. But it was like that was the approach. And Chabad in Russia is establishment, is federation, So, and we were sitting there, it's Chakut Geshikut, and he's talking. And I don't know how it came out. He said, look, he went to Cheder, speaking in Hebrew. I went to Cheder in Lud. I didn't learn anything. I was a troublemaker. My father would come home. I'd come home. My father would say, "How was today?" I'd say, "Good," until the telephone would ring, and they'd say, "Your son today? You know what he did?" My father would get over the phone. Shemais and noch Shemis. This is they come from
Bukhara,
Bukhara, Shemais. And then this is him. I'm telling you, he was tipsy. And he didn't even realize he's saying it. He says, "Mit jeder Shmais noch a million acheder zu Chabad," that he gives.
Right.
Whatever he did, instilled in him, more iskashas.
Yes.
And he said it I'm telling you, he didn't say it to impress. There was 3 people sitting there.
100%.
And he said,
Instilled in him more.
so I said to himself, your father would have given, yeah, it would have been a lot more,
He put in the munah, pshuta.
Yeah. It was like, he's another million. Like that. And, you don't make up a moment like that. So and I really was, I don't know the man well, but I saw this Friday night, nobody was there, no cameras, it was 1 o'clock in the morning in Moscow for Stay Smith. And I realized, something. I don't know this guy, but put his money where his mouth is, so there's not, first of all, I don't really care what his kavanas are. That's a sach mention, it's the rest of the kavanas don't, it doesn't cost, they don't. And then I said to myself, the first person I met, where the Rebbe goes with him into the bank, not only to the bank. There's a lot of chassidim, the Rebbe's with them, I'm telling you, 100%, I have no question. But until Adkan, getting his right, and the Rebbe, and that was that touched me very deeply. Because I saw it, because that's hard. Everybody, people I sit here, me vein to me can verbringen, and alle Sachen Rebbe. Then I'm talking about the guys that have a lot of money, and then say them, maybe you give $10,000. Oh, we have to get 5 people to, right away. I'm not. Look, everybody is a tzaddik, but you know what I'm trying to say. I haven't. He's talking about meeting. So there's the Peretz Fagensons and this type. I never met the guy to that extent. Better wise. There's a few people.
I once went to the oil.
And I'm not taking away. By the way, Rabashkin is a ballet docker.
No, I'm to Rabashkin. No,
but I'm saying no. But that because it was impressive. that he'll put the money away.
You're talking about a mamutza? Better
I
wise.
was very touched by that, and that will never. That I'm not naive. I saw that. I didn't say anything, but I said there's hope, and I know a lot of people.
He is a mamutza. He instilled in generations to generations. People.
Look, when Bugalubov got up, and a lot of people don't like Bugalubov, they say that he's a businessman and blah blah blah.
He got up and said.
He said he gave credit. He said to this.
He taught him.
And that is so. I don't care what happened in Lud and Zayn Lenin, but he got the etzem he has. So you see things like that, but they're far and few, and there's a lot of other garbage.
Maybe it's not far off you, Simon. Maybe it's like a different look, a different approach.
Maybe cook with good egg, I guess you see.
Maybe cook with egg. Okay.
No, you want to know something? If I ever had to make a big decision, and around the Rebbe, Levi would be on top of my list, top five to call. Not because Glenn Chassidus, because his hergish will be right.
Right.
Because I'm talking about a thing where there's no penias. I need to have a real serious advice. He's a guy I would call, because I have no question he has his heart. He's got the chush. He has a chush, and it's something. And he wasn't down when he was saying all this. It wasn't like I could see. He said it hit him hard and all that. I spoke to him a little, but it was he had the munapshut. It was like he's confident he's going to bounce back. It wasn't like. You could think Azach's stock is given. They bestimmt that hit.
He did more than stock. You know what he did? He was a tsar when he came. You see, it wasn't only money.
No, of course
It
not.
wasn't only money.
Money is never only money.
It was kings and countries. Haben sich gerechnet mit Lubavitch because he was the mamutza.
I just want to, if you don't mind,
No, but this is a dogma. I'm looking for Kesser in our times, in our matter.
It's all about this is nice talk.
This is avodah. Yeah.
Dat happened deal.
Of zich.
Nee,
I'm talking about myself.
Friedrich Rebbe
I'm
says.
talking about myself. Now, we like to talk. It's a new
I saw a word. The Friedrich Rebbe says, as alle gleichen reiten auf ein Pferd. Aber es ist leichter reiten auf jenem Pferd, wie auf dem eigenen.
Yeah.
The Rebbe, he said that everybody likes to ride a horse. But it's easier to ride on someone else's horse than on your own.
100%.
Nefesh Abamis. I said, the Friedrich Rebbe Sikh is full. I just saw the Friedrich Rebbe says that why is the sun red in the morning when it rises? Well, Shemtzach, Havem Shainig.
Oh, wow.
It's embarrassed. Who am I shining? It's
Why is the sun red
blushing.
when it
It's
shines?
blushing. It's blushing.
I once had a Shiloh, Erugim Kippur.
It's good, huh?
I had a major Shiloh in my whole whatever. I Vedas Hashem. And I went to the oil. I'm walking in the gate. Right before the tzedakah box, like my gate and who did I see in front of me? Beryl Weiss. I didn't bother going into the oil. I turned around, I left. I had my answer. It's mind-boggling. Eruvim Kippur. Not Erev like 2 days before, 3 days before. I had my answer.
Simon.
So, yeah. We'll learn to the end of the
It's
Perek.
important to
Yeah,
agree
let's go,
on
let's
this point
go.
because it's always
You don't mind.
So let me ask you, what kind of remedy could I take to be in Avodas Hashem?
Hello.
Hanukkah? Let's see.
Hello, Mugach Leimer. Hello, Mugach Leimer.
Okay.
Cover ground, man.
Cover ground. You know, I see he.
Can you imagine the Mesilas Nefesh Rebbe sitting and writing this? The times were difficult. You're talking about 1912. The Tzoris by Ibn Damot given Shreklach. There were pogroms. That's when a lot of American Jews came from there. They were running from the Tsar was just about to be overthrown. Revolution. Just a few years later, the Rebbe Rashab was forced to leave Lubavitch after 102 years to go to Rostov. So just put the setting, and here's sitting. I'm not writing a page or two. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. He's struggling to teach us, because I'm sure he knew how to teach us. How do you climb to these
Do you
levels?
think the outside
That's
world?
pretty. Come on.
Cinema.
And you see, very patient. It goes through. We just read a page here. I mean, it's awesome.
Why is it when Polish Chassidim open up a safe like this, the right away is like throw away like a hot potato? See how you family. Why is that? The typical reaction.
I think their culture, first of all, trained them to be easy chassidim, which means shirayim, the levushim, kitzdaka. I'm not saying that they're not good people.
I'm not talking about them. They're learning. Do the
Let's say a day of Ikea, an Aveda, I don't think exists. It's not a tzaddik b'manasa yichi. Tzaddik too. The Rebbe Rashab, one of the Pelshach Chassidim once grabbed some shirayim. You know what the Rebbe Rashab said? Abamir zayin the shirayim b'chayev nish mezake. That's the. And the Rabbeim taught us, like the Rebbe. The Mesa said, Moshe Hecht told Moshe Hecht from New Haven, so the Rebbe wanted him to build a school. But when the Rebbe wants something, he's not letting you go so fast. So no matter what he wrote to the Rebbe, first had something to the school. So he realized, so he started avoiding the Rebbe, in a way. He doesn't want to have. And 4 years passed. Avoided. He couldn't avoid the Rebbe, you come to Fabrengens, but he had them all. It was like, he knew the guilt every time he's going. So finally he comes driving down to New York. He has a school, he bought a school. This new semester had already 400 kids signed up. So he thought, he's coming and he's reporting to them. He goes, I remember I was a bocher at the time. He comes to Gan Eden Atachne after Mincha, and he's standing there, the Rebbe's going to walk in, he's going to tell him. And the excitement, finally, the steiners are up from Haaretz. So he tells the Rebbe, I'm the school, 400 Kinder. The Rebbe gives him a smile and says, Rab Meishe, du weißt, an mir wirst du nicht zufriedenstellen. He says, Rab Meishe, you know that me you're never going to make happy. Instead, that was it. Now, it's not that the Rebbe didn't appreciate it, but it was like, there's no such thing as he built a school. I think that's one main reason. They're like spoiled. It's almost like a koil mentality. Do your thing in the Epstein and Shikun, Brochus, and the big sheet of the Alter Rebbe was not that. That's not how it works, my friend. There's real work, hard work, hard labor. And I think that
This is the first one.
Limud Hachsidus like this, it's completely Chabad. Nobody has the concept of it. There's no such thing. Hashem's Keteris are 3 lines, 5 lines, 10 lines the most. You've got Tifa Zachen, but it's relatively, deceptively easy. Vort, Avertale. When you see this, you start seeing what's in that Vort, but they're not trained like that.
I see that.
And remember, let's put it this way, let's be honest. Most people gravitate to the easiest approach.
Yeah, naturally.
If you have 2 ways to go, you go the easy. This is a Shvera Veda, Derech Arucha Ktsara. It's hard stuff. So let's continue. Yeah, Meir?
Yeah, please.
Okay. We'll finish the Pedic.
Meishe, I either the Taiva to finish our Maimer. Let's do it.
Okay.
Make him happy.
That's all. Darfst du doch get mal Taifes. In Cain.
Tell me where we are, pretty much how many lines now.
We're
5 lines from the bottom of the page.
No.
No. Sorry. Ela Mucha Chlemer.
10 lines.
3, 6, 10 lines.
Let me find it.
Okay. So after all that he said, I gave it Alazai.
Okay.
Bottom line is, Atik, no matter how you twist it, is beyond us. And how can we, as we remain ourselves, being who we are, the Netzolim of Esed Sfiras Datzilas Chacham Bin Adas, how can it relate to a world that is Lo Yoda V'Lo Yisyada? That's not known, and it's not known to others, not known to itself. Ela Muchrach Leimer. This is going to be beautiful, he's going to say. He's going to basically say like this, that the Eibishter planted in our Netzolim a taste of that too. Ela Muchrach Leimer is here, we must say, the Mashak Kes and Nikra Mamutza, how it Kes is called the Mamutza, Hainu, the Eisa Madrega Atzma, Shanikra Bechinis Achreinu Sheba Atzmus, that level itself, that's the lowest level of the way Hashem is in, like the Moshe put it, in his inner sanctum, who Atzmei Shanasa Kesel Netzolim. That gufa becomes connected to us. V'hi memuhusan Netzolim, and it's also in our personality. It also relates to us. Netzolim. You can't say that simply about Atik and Arich. Why? Because the B'chinas Atik moved to Berich. Atik is separate. It never goes down and becomes a Malkut. It always remains in the inner palace there. Ubechinas arich shenasa mokel netzolim ein ze bechinas madregas atik. On the other hand, arich is always the one that's dealing with the source of the netzolim of the sfiras, and is never the level of atik. V'gam zeh einem muhus netzolim, as we said before, and even that is rotzen, and it's not the muhus, the personality of netzolim. Ve'echi yalid zechibar hanal canal. How could then there be a connection? So you have to say that the primary mamutza is a level called chachmas tima. We'll soon see it's chachma of arich, but it has within it atik's personality. So it's like a new level he's revealing here. I mean, he spoke about it before, but this the bechlalusi of bechinas chachma. In general, it's chachma. On one hand, it's chachma, like you said, chesed, gvur, it's chachma. Rag the bechinas chachma stemar has a lamaila bechinas chachma dat silas. But this level of chachma stemar, though it's called chachma, it's much higher than the chachma as we know it in Atzilus. U'kamaimer antul chakim v'loy b'chachma yediyah. The Eibush is a chachma, but not the chachma that we are aware of. So it's chachma. So we have a common denominator now. We found something common between the two. It's chachma, but it's not the chachma idea, the chachma, the knowledge, the awareness
Chachma of knowledge.
or more chachma idea, chachma as we know it.
Yes,
I think so. The chachma that Atzilus nikra chachma idea, because the chachma of Atzilus is called chachma idea, knowable knowledge, knowable wisdom. Because it's chachma. Mashem b'chinas chachma stima, but the hidden chachma, the lo yediyah. Shem b'chinas mahus chachma adayin. You can't call it not knowable, because it's not yet mahus chachma. Achi l'mayla min chachma, l'gaba chachma. Compared to our chachma, that's higher than chachma. U'kamayma shtek kachol b'machshava. Commission is bar le'el, commission is bar le'el, l'kama dukten, l'kama, or l'kama. What's the expression shtek kachol b'machshava? You learned it earlier. When you're learning, and suddenly the teacher says, be quiet, or the Eibishter says, be quiet. That's my mind. It's machshava of the Eibishter, but it's shteik. You can't relate to it. So it's a chachma there, but it's not the chachma that we can relate to. So compared to our chachma, it's shteik. It's silence. Silent song.
Don't get me wrong there.
Shteik
Pressing
kachol
buttons. Go ahead.
It actually begins mocker the chachma. The only thing you could say about it is the mocker, it's the source of chachma. Where does seichel come from? There's a place that we don't really know where it is. It's like, think of it like a reservoir of water. And chachma that we know is like the faucet that lets the water in. But we know behind the faucet, there's somewhere a body of seichel, collective unconscious. The mocker seichel, you can't call it seichel as we know it, because it's a place where ideas flow. The chachma stemah rak begins mocker the chachma. So chachma stemah, on one hand it's chachma, on the other hand it's not chachma, it's the mocker of chachma. V'im heyesu begins mocker the netzalim, and even though this is the root of the source of the netzalim of the sfiras, hin lepaimim eila v'nichel begins atzmos ve'ena nimne imas sfiras. This chachma stemah at times goes to another place. It goes into the inner sanctum. That's not counted with the spheres. V'oz hadas nimna. In that time, then das, you count das. You don't count keser, you count das. Shu hamamshim b'chinas atzmos the meichas timah. Because when meichas timah goes so-called into the inner sanctum, who's ruling the coop? You know, it's das, which brings down from the atzmos, the essence of meichas timah. That's a footnote. Lepomim, this meichas timah yedid lamata. So this is like a force that goes into the inner sanctum but comes back at times. And sometimes it comes yedid lamata, comes down to us, lius moker v'kesed l'netzalim. And as a source and a crown for the netzalim. So we have now a new level. That's a new introduction. It's not atik that's always there, and arich that's always here. There's one force, chachmas tamar, that goes here sometimes and here. So it has chachmas similarities to us, to the structure, but it also has similarities to beyond the structure. This is what he's going to now elaborate upon. What does this mean that sometimes it goes up and sometimes it comes down? And when it goes up, it's like atzmus. Then it becomes like atzmus, the essence. It has within it personality of the etzem, like we will explain later. And from that perspective, it doesn't have. It's not counted with the spheres. It's not in that category. And the external part of it is the mokal and etzolim. But its outer part is a source for netzolim. And that's why it's called a mamutza. Now we have a real mamutza because sheyesh b'mchinas elyon v'atachten that has both a part of the elyon and part of the tachten. And the primus shabei l'lamayla. Hainu shezeh b'chinas atzmus shabei. The previous of it, the inner part, goes up and that's the atzmus in it. The chitzeni shabei yerid l'mata shenasa b'chinas makar. The external part becomes the makar. V'hu atzmei kele beis madregas. And this level has both. Now, of course, we're going to have to still understand this because maybe you could just say the same problem again. The inner part of it is shayach here, the outer part here. But here, what he's adding is that they're both part of one thing. So it still needs explanation because you could just say it's semantics. What does he do? Instead of saying atik anarich, he's saying the primis and chitzenis and meichus tamo. Maybe that's also like atik anarich. But we'll discuss that. We'll see what the Rashab says. V'hainu the chachmas tamo atzma. So they're adding now, Chachmas Torah itself is neither of the two. She'ein ze b'chinas atzmus. The atzmus ain't together Chachma, as we said. Atzmus is not together Chachma. Chachmas Tema is called Chachmas Tema. V'lei b'chinas and etzolim, but it's also not Chachma, as we know it in Chachma Vatzilus. The Kol Beis HaMadregas sheyesh bo b'chinas atzmus mamash v'apnimi shebo yesh bo ma'atachten v'aynu b'chinas achtzen shlish v'nasa mokeh. So it's a different level that has a piece of both of the levels, the higher and the lower. The klolusei ubchinis chachma, by dezeh yiyah chibur, and in general it's chachma, and through this becomes the connection. Ulefizeh moving klolos inyan eich shalidem amutzi yiyah chibur v'shaychus and etzolim ela atzmus shehem be'en arech legamri. And according to this new level that we're introducing here, chachmis tamo, we will understand how this mutza becomes a chibur, a connection and a relationship between the netzolim and atzmus, which is completely apart. The connection between the two is the atzmus inside the mamutza, the chachmas tamo. So he's adding now that even though it's atzmus, but it's how atzmus in some way manifests in chachma. The b'chinas madregas hu he gam kein ene klal b'chinas makal and netzolim. This level on its own is not at all the source of the spheres, the Atzilus. Rak b'chinas hachitzenis, only the external part of it. Nevertheless, because at the end of the day it's still chachma, which has in it something, common denominator within Netzolim. And the external part of chachmas tamah becomes a source for Netzolim. Because it's now in the shape of Chachma, therefore, even the Netzolim, the spheres, have some connection now to the Atzmus within this Mamutza, within the Chachmas Temah. And now they have a path to get into the inner dimension, the essence of the might. Now remember, this is just an introduction. He's now going to explain this. So see, the next paragraph, next chapter begins Bira Inyan. He's going to go into a whole explanation how Chachmas Tamah has these two elements. And so the goal here is to explain this level and also how we can use it as a bridge. I mean, a best example, since we're using the Rebbe as an example for this, I think it comes down to, I think this is a good example actually as I think about it. The Rebbe spoke many, many sikhs, hundreds. And he explained it. It's not that he spoke a sikh and you just stood there and shook your head. Some things were very deep. Some things need a lot of haravanya. But by speaking, he revealed himself. Anon nafshis ksovis yavis. Now the Rebbe Rashab gesagt, the ksovim irgein himmel. Right before he passed away, the Rebbe Rashab asked himself to be brought his bed into the zal. And he says, I'm going to irgein himmel, the ksovim lo zechayich. I'm going to heaven, but the ksovim I leave you. The Rebbe always asks, what's the connection? He's going to himmel. What is he telling us about the ksov? So the Rebbe said, well, he wants you to know that how he's in heaven, you have him through this photo. learn my ksovim, and you'll have me as I'm in Himmel. Because the Rebbe puts himself into the Torah that he writes. Like the Eibishter, Anoichi, Anon Nafshis Ksovis Yehovitz, it says the Eibishter implanted himself in Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. So when you learn Torah, you're not just learning instructions from, you're learning God's personality is in there. So the Rebbe didn't teach Torah, and we didn't have Torah, which is of course what he's going to explain. You could say, okay, very nice, we have some common denominator, but I don't have anything in me that can relate. So the Rebbe says, I'll give you Chochmah. You can figure it out in your, maybe you'll never get it completely, but you have something with which you'll get my essence, not just the Melech, how he is besod. You'll get me as I am in my depths. The Rebbe, there was a guy that came to the Rebbe in Yechidus. He brought something like a manuscript he found from one of the Rebbes. So the Rebbe said, how could I repay you? So he said he wants a picture of the Rebbe with a signature, like a celebrity. So the Rebbe said to him, why do you want that? He says, I want to have a connection with you. He said, you want a connection with me? Learn what I learn. You'll have a connection with me. They told him to go to Kahos. He could go. They told him, it's not. In other words, a picture you get Chutzenis of the Rebbe. Not that the picture has its value, but you want me, how I am, me. Learn what I learn. And by the Rebbe, you see clearly the amount of Torah, the amount of Chassidus, the amount of. So basically, when you're learning, it's on your terms or on the Rebbe's terms. On one hand, it's the Rebbe's speaking, so it's definitely the Rebbe, but the Rebbe put himself into Chochmah. He didn't just, he's not, we don't know what the Rebbe did at the oil, where he was in his own place, and places, Hecher and Yonah. But in the Sichos, he, in a sense, created a bridge, a mamutza. That here are things you can understand, you learn, you'll understand. Some will understand more or less, but you can't say it's not understandable. It's not just Kabbalah sale. And the way, through that, you have a bridge all the way into the essence. That's essentially what he's saying here. See, so Atik and Arach alone, two nice levels. This is this is Atzmus, this is Netzalim. Here, he's starting to describe an entity that's Chochmah, but it's a Chochmah that with not Chochmah Yediyah, not like our Chochmah, but it's still Chochmah. And you have now some tools to you can bite into it. So the Rebbe Rashab said, learn the Ksovim and you'll have me. That's what it comes down to. So that's they're going to be the beer now. Now the question is, how does this Chachma have both parts? Because you can start arguing, you know what? When I learn a Sikh, it's my small Seichel. It's not the Rebbe's understanding. But he's going to bring how Chachma has to have both parts. How the person who teaches, whose Chachma is, puts himself into it. And so ultimately, when you learn Torah, that becomes the bridge between you and the Eibush. You start understanding God a little. Not completely, but you understand. I think this is an ukudah. Yeah. One thing is for sure. It's not the chachma that we use all day for our own shtus. So at worst, even if you don't get it all, you're at least thinking someone else's ideas, the Rebbe's ideas instead of your own. Yeah, for sure. I think this is, to elaborate on what we said before, this is the essence what I think Yiddishkeit in general, Eden, including Polish Chassidim and andere don't get. Maybe when we lived in a shtetl, all you needed was a mun and a tzaddik, and your grandmother's chicken soup in the kitchen. It was enough to blind my eat. Because you didn't have other options. Where are you going? There was no big city, there was no internet, there was no television. You lived in a shtetl. All you had was your parents, your grandparents, mashpiyim. I mean, you're not even Chassid. Before the Baal Shem Tov, the Ruach was pure, and there were no options. So on one hand, you could say it was very naive and closed, and if they had options, but that was the Eibishter Gewalt. That was it was. And Faket, the more discrimination from outside, the more stronger you became a Yid. Because you couldn't suddenly say, I'm going to come and join you. The Goyim didn't want us. They persecuted us. So it became very strong Yid. It seems that, the Eibishter, I guess, in the last shlavim of Dida B'Tachtenim, Mashiach, wanted us to get out of the ghetto and come to the big world. The Rebbe says, Chetzi Kader HaTachten. And now we're in a big world, and here it's Here it's a contaminated environment. There's no every street is contaminated. So the only way is now you want a connection, you better start learning and understanding, having a relationship with the Eibishter, not just based on makif and amuna and environment. And I think that is what the Baal Shem Tov really came, the Alter Rebbe, what the Tefes given, and that's really what Chassidus came to do. was to make now we have we cannot just rely these inyanim. I'm sure 500 years ago Rashi knew, but he didn't have to teach it. He knew it, and we relied as Rashi and Rambam and Rashba and a few others with the Mekabalim and Tzaddikim. And today, if you don't, since we use our minds for everything, if you don't use your mind to internalize it, you can't just go on Amun alone. That's what it comes down to. And I think the frum world doesn't know that. Even by us, we don't even fully know it. I mean, why else? Why do we have why did Rabbi leave so much to write? Why do they have to write it all? It's hard to write. I have no question. That's what it is. There's no way. Today you have to. Let's put it this way: for minimum, to stay out of trouble, you have to use your mind for kedusha dikazach. If not, beirek ein b'mayim. That's what I said. If someone says you're not mafrumarid, but my mind is all involved in business, what's wrong with that? The answer is sof la pirida. Be a great business person, but you have to learn that business. You have to use your mind a little for the Eibusher. If not, it's going to start to sit on him krichen. There's no way that you could live two worlds up. My mind, I'm great business, I'm great in the world, and Yiddishkeit by me is not mitzvahs meisis. I think the Baal Shem Tov made it clear you cannot, will never survive with that. Some people could go that way, but the Rei Ve'ela, you see, look, the best minds were all stolen by the Maskilim. Because it was not, even with Chassidus. What happened? They brought in hashkafis, very appealing philosophy and ideas, and there was no competition. The competition was, but it doesn't stimulate my mind. These guys are giving me philosophy and ideas and music and culture and science. It was a very powerful force. And it's mentioned by the Kep. There's no question. For sure. I have a guy, the guy that I know, he's passed away, but remember he started going to college. And I saw that he's definitely going to go. So I told him, okay, if you go already, my suggestion is don't take Jewish studies, Hebrew studies. She says, no, that's exactly what I want to take, because that will keep me Jewish. I said, take everything but Jewish studies. The studies, they're Jewish studies. And he took, and we were mamish applicated because the Jewish studies, they cut out every kedusha from it. He's telling Rabbi Akiva had a mother that he didn't know. Everything becomes Kabbalah, everything. And Moshe Rabbeinu grew up in Father's home. So, it was like a try. You lose the ganze, that's it. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Jewish studies, the worst. Because the Leonard Zachen, the things you learned your whole life, and suddenly they turn it into he told me, some say Isaac had Down syndrome. That's why he cooperated with Al-Qaeda. Some theorists.
Or the Baal Shem Tov was a herbalist.
Whatever it was. So you don't even need to believe it, but it's in the head does.
He's experimenting.
Shane is good. When the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe always tells the Rebbe Rashab, when they broke to hiring a teacher to teach the three daughters of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe's and the other two daughters. So they interviewed a few teachers, and one teacher they asked, "What are you going to do when it comes to that Al-Qaeda?" I'm going to skip it. Why? Because I don't want to scare children. Al-Qaeda, ISIS. So the Rebbe Rashab said, "Don't take him. The kinder darf man mona pshuta." They're going to start choosing which part of the Torah you're going to teach them. Say, well, you're going to teach Al-Qaeda to an adult, and they're going to get it. Yeah, only children get it. Anyway, this is the Mises. I think this is, if you want to really say it, the Chassidus has not in any way really. It's thank God a little more than it was, but as a you must learn this. I was invited. There was a rabbi. Remember, Rabbi used to come to my class. The guy's name, an older guy. He was on the board of Orthodox rabbis of Long Island. He was, I think, the chairman or something. He used to come to my class. He used to sit in the back and learn and take notes and everything. I didn't know who he was. Then he says to me, "Do you mind? I really learn much from here. I'd like to invite you to our annual. It was annual or semi-annual meeting of Orthodox rabbis all Long Island."
He had his little pad, and he would come in and he would sit, mostly by the yeshiva katana.
He had like a
little white beard.
goatee.
Yeah, goatee.
So I said, okay, how many rabbis? 60, 70 rabbis. All the Orthodox rabbis of Long Island. So I go to speak. I said, what do you want me to speak about? He says, the importance of learning Kabbalah. I said, that's what your colleagues want. I said, maybe we should call Primus Atayr. Okay, fine, it doesn't matter, who cares what the... So I come there, and it was all older rabbis, some I knew, some Chosh, I knew of, from young Israel of New Hempstead, and the Ansem Isis, Sayasit, and here and there, a lot of rabbis. Very nice, but I started right away. They were all older than me mostly. I started, it was around 4 years ago. It was a very interesting thing that happened. You got to hear this. And some were very older. I saw, senior rabbis, one with a cane, So I said, let me just begin here. I'm, compared to all of you, I'm a young man. And I feel uncomfortable even speaking in front of Choshev Rabbonim. And I say, that was the Ufem, Eidem Mishmai Dafim L'Chufem, That's what they were taught. Before you give them a few whacks, you gotta lift them up, so you could see the. So I said, such important rabbis, and you've had influence on thousands of people and communities, and this. I feel inadequate to say anything, and but I didn't attack them at all, And I said, but since the rabbi, what his name was, said since he invited me.
I have to call you back in an hour, I think.
So since he invited me, I'll share a few of my experiences because I deal mostly with the secular world that you probably don't deal with so much, and some thoughts and so on. And when he introduced me, he says one of the reasons I asked him because could help us perhaps nourish our membership and also make it grow. That was the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I said. Then I started. I said, look. The first thing I want to make very clear here. There's no tricks. It's not like there's new methods. No, it's all right. No. It's all right. You'll see. It's perfectly fine. I said there's no tricks. There's no new methods. Same Torah. There's different dimensions in Torah. I started speaking. I said there's a Torah talks you how to do Hilchos Shabbos. So anyone that grew up with Shabbos, you want to know the Alamatas Malachas, Pesach, Sukkot, Tefillah, the whole thing. That's what we call the mechanics, the technicalities. It's vital, but if someone wants to know why do you keep Shabbos? What's the big thing if I put on a switch? Or what happens when I put on Tefillah? So there's a thing called Primus Atayr. I said, both for Frumid and not Frumid, without that second half of Primus Atayr, you're going to have at best a mechanical Jew. A Jew does everything like to the book. So you have auto mechanics, they can fix cars, but they have no clue And then you can have a Jew that is a passionate Jew, also relates. Shabbos is a day, Ruchni is the day, what means Ruchni, what's an Neshama, and so on. And I think it's critical, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Primus Atayr, but it's critical that you introduce it to your communities. When you speak in a drasha, when you give a class, you should speak. And what's in the neshama in this? Let's say you give a shir in Hilchos Shabbos. At the end, you should say something, the ruchni is the personal, psychological application. And I was going on about that, and I said that's the secret, in my opinion, of success, of holding people and also attracting people, new people, when they hear it's relevant to their lives. So I don't know if you want to reach out to the secular, but even if not, we all live in a secular world. Even the Frum Jews are secular in a way. And you need to, I said, how many people open up a chumash when they have a personal problem? You go to a therapist. You book a book of psychology. Torah is chayenu v'erech yameinu. What does it mean? It means that Torah has lessons in our lives. Every parsha has lessons. I gave a few examples. They elected. It was very, very good. Because I didn't say it in any person. I didn't say, but then it got a little heated. What I mean heated? So one person says, so what are you suggesting exactly? Most of us do not do this. Most of us are not trained to do this. And it sounds, a lot of things that you're saying, it sounds like you're reading from secular psychology. I said, no, it's Primus Atayr. Now, a lot of them didn't, they say, well, not in yeshivas by us. I heard yeshivas didn't tell us there's a thing called that. It's something you have to learn. Anyway, it was no one was really criticized, but they was like, we never heard this Torah. A lot of them were saying. So it sounds good in Allah Zacha, but it's nicht. So a guy gets up, an older man. He looked like he was the senior. Everyone respected him. And he was excellent. I remember he had a cane. He gets up on the cane. He says, a gentleman, very distinguished. Like he had this, but I swear he was must have been like really probably a retired rabbi. But and they were all listening to him. Very gentleman. We're behind closed doors here. There's no one here. Let us call a spade a spade. We are absolute amaratzim, and we have no idea how to touch the neshama of a yid. So let's stop with this whole thing of grilling Rabbi Jacobson. He's telling us about how you touch the neshama of a yid. It's something we are imbeciles in. They taught us, yes, some of us are ge'enim, poskim, maybe some of us are good counselors, and our communities love us, but we are losing memberships as we speak. The young next generation does not come with their parents to shul on Shabbos. And soon some will all die. And we're sitting here and talking about, here's a man that is teaching us something we must include into our systems. And I'm here to listen and stop challenging him, you know? You have to be defensive here. We're looking here for Yiddish and Neshamas. So it had a big impact. So then so they said, well, what do you suggest? I said, let's talk short term and long term. Long term, I suggest that you as rabbis and leaders should insist on the yeshivas that produced you, that you cannot become a practicing rabbi without a heavy dose of learning Chassidus. That's part of your training to become a rabbi. You know? I think every Jew should do it.
A very tall order.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. One second. And I said, this doesn't mean you have to become Chassidim. It doesn't mean you have to, but it means you have to be exposed to how you speak about neshama language. You know, what does God want? What does God think it is? I don't care. I don't care if it was a tall order. I had to say what I had to say. It was kenichtan. I mean, these are rabbis. They're not kids. I said, that's one thing. And you have to do it in a diplomatic way that everybody can accept. You don't call it Chassidus, call it whatever you want. The bottom line is relevant Judaism. You cannot just be mechanical, you know. And the second thing is, that's long term. Short term, you will have hashpah and teachings. You have to begin to think like that. And you'll be amazed of a connection you'll be established with your communities when they start seeing that you add a dimension that often is not added, which is that personal touch, the heart, you know, not just a nice Holocaust story that makes people cry, but a Yiddishkeit that is viable. Anyway, I'm not, listen, I didn't come to solve the world's problems. I'm just sharing. What I'm sharing with you is I saw very clear the dissonance. You know, like the two worlds. These are the rabbis of the world, and they don't even think like what I was saying. They're not even looking. They're busy trying to figure out how do you balance the machlekes in between their balabatim, and how do you fundraise for a new carpet. You know, that's mostly what they're involved in. And they're not even thinking about how do I expand and get the new, excite minds or excite the hearts of young people. That's not what they're, a few of them got it. It's not even their matara. No one ever trained them to think like that. You know, on their own.
Their ashkaf is different ashkaf.
Exactly. So, but then they call this kiruv. I hate it when they start telling me, oh, you're talking about kiruv. I said, what's kiruv? I'm talking about uflaken and neshama. What's right kiruv? I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about you. What's kiruv? They relate. They. That's how they dismiss the whole thing. That at best, all this is for grabbing people who are in Buddhism. They think this is the kranke. They don't get it. But okay, fine. I'm not. But it's not about being critical of them. It's more of understanding the matzah v'elam.
Sumi, can I go back to the Maimer for a second? Can I ask a question?
This is the Maimer.
I know, but I know this is very good. It's very interesting what you said now. No, it's very, very.
No, it's understanding the relevance of this. Is go ahead.
I just want to say I gave somebody speaking of Sikha. A guy asked me at work, a very smart lawyer, asked me this question today, and today I don't mean today. I mean like in this day and age, after everything has been published about the Rebbe, and he got funny. He said, I know 2 or 3 Lubavitchers. You're like the 4th guy that I know. So he asked me a question. He asked me a serious question. Did the Rebbe know how to learn? Like, I don't mean like preach like for Kiruv, and did he really know how to learn like Torah? That's what he asked me. This guy's a brilliant lawyer, nice guy. So I told him I can't answer that question. I said because it's going to be too complicated for me to answer it. I'm going to tell you what I can do for you. I'm going to tell me which Indian Torah you're learning. What do you like? And I'm going to bring you a few photocopies or something. You tell me. I can't explain it. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. So he says, okay. So I bring him a sikha. Chelik Chav Hey. The Rebbe speaks about. It's about the Rebbe speaks about in Yavamas. Brings a question in Yavamas about. I learned the sikha. I forgot. Anyway, there's a beautiful sikha, but there's a nigla sikha, and then the Rebbe ends up the sikha. Oh, with the Kirbach, neshamas. Talking about neshamas, about why today you have to make more neshamas, having more children. So the Rebbe said that there's Puravu, and there's Puravu in the Ruchnis. So the Rebbe always ends a sikha, with how like the Bechain in this world. What do we do? So the Rebbe says, and that's why this is in Tavshin Chafayos. That's why we have to go and get more yidden, mekar them. This is how we have children. This is Ruchnis to get children. So he reads this in the beginning of the sikha. It's beautiful. The Rebbe asks a question that the Rebbe says that according to Nigla, you can't answer this question. I have to learn the sikha. It's in Chelik. I think it's Chelik Chav Hey. It's in Gemara.
What's the sugya? Eidim Zayman?
No, it's about children. It's about having children. It's about the puravu. Oh, if you have a boy and a girl, if you have to have more.
Okay.
If you're
And you gave it to him?
So yeah, I gave it to him.
And what happened?
So he learned the whole sikha, and the last part he didn't learn. He finished till the Rebbe gets to the Bechaim. So I asked him what happened. He says, I learned the sikha. The part that says, it says, very interesting. So his answer, very, very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I said, so what do you say to the punchline? So he says,
What language did he learn it?
It's in Hebrew.
You know he reads Hebrew?
Yeah, no, he's a from guy. He's in that area. So he says, that part, I started to read it and it wasn't for me. It's like, he couldn't go there. He was able to read it for smart. Yeah. So Simon, let me ask you a question. Atik and Arich, right? If he's a Chacham.
Yeah. Good to see.
Chacham is Tamar, right? It's Chacham, whatever it is, he's going to explain later, right? I'm saying it's Chacham, so it's another gather, it's another thing, because otherwise, what's the point? Like we said before he split it, okay, Keser, Atik, and Arich, and so that's the Mumutza. So now he's saying it has a different property, or has something, Chacham itself, has something that seemingly can go both ways. It means you can go up and you can go down. It can be connected to the Tzolim, and at the same time still be true L'mayla. In other words, I guess the design of the system, the intelligent design of the Eibishter made in the world, is a reflection of the Chacham Elah, whatever it is, that the Chacham of the Eibishter, right? With Tzelem Elokim. So if you look at
it's better not to guess, because it's going to be now a good 30 pages on it.
No, I'm saying, so whatever I'm guessing, I'm saying is that Chacham Istamar is like something that, in other words, it has to be something that you can say that it's in the higher level, it's the same as the lower level, just on a different dimension. Otherwise, what's the point? It's not a bridge.
Yeah, but wait, why guess and speculate?
No, forget it. It's not speculating.
No, I'm saying, I'm asking
I'm
you,
not
he's going to say it. He's going to say it before.
I understand. I'm not speculating. I'm saying
I can't say I agree, because I think that the Rabbi Shab says it a little differently and different ways.
Okay, whatever.
And it's always best to see what he says and then fit our seichel to that.
Okay, so I'm not trying. So my point is, I'm using it as a contrast, like the lo yadam. So whatever that is, it's different, right? So the question is, what is Atik and Arich? In Muhus, it's not Chachma, is that what is it that is different than the property of Chachma? Does he explain that later? In other words, he's saying these two things are very different. One is connected to above, one is connected to below, right? So he's saying, let me tell you a new thing, a new property.
Honestly, I don't remember. And I think you got to learn it. I don't know.
Okay.
I
But you know what I'm asking? Because clearly you asked the question before, like what's the, so you brought in a third thing, so big deal. But at least what is the properties of Atik and Arich? I don't know Chacham is. Chacham is something else. Whatever that is, it's better.
Obviously, if he asked the question and then answered with Chochmah, it means that Chochmah doesn't have the problem.
Right, but I understand. But what is Atik considered? Is Atik like air? Is Atik, that's why it's in two different lights and two different expressions. What's the difference? What is that called? Chachma is Chachma, whatever that means. It means it's logic. I don't know the word.
I could tell you what he said till now about
yeah,
Atik.
Okay.
Atik is netek v'nivdal. It's a chelik hatachten from Atzmos.
Right.
Basically, apart from Seder Shtalshlus, you never count it with the spheres. It is not not in the gather of Chochmah, Bina, Das, etc. That's what he said.
There's no system in
Hataka, right? If you look on top of page Shin Sadik Zayin, it says it very clearly. Loshik Vayetek Ahora Shenetek V'Nivto V'Eses Sfiras Datzilus.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
It's completely separate from and apart from the Eses Sfiras Datzilus. You're saving it?
No.
Huh?
Yeah, it's good. It's not. I'm just looking for something. It's on.
So Michlal, I'm saying in Kesser, is that considered an Is that an
I don't know the word is.
I don't know, whatever it means, but what's the difference between Chachma?
I don't know semantics. I can't deal with. I don't know what you mean by I don't know. I use the ACS that he says. It's
No,
not.
I know, but what...
Everything in existence has an and a keli. So.
Right. Okay, I guess I have to... Okay. I don't know what... No, I'm asking...
What are you trying to fit
I'm
into?
trying to understand what is Atik. What is it?
Do you understand what Atzilus is?
No.
So let's talk maybe from
No, because
Atzilus.
the Chachma I can understand. I know Chachma means something that has a system, a seichel, whatever. It's logic, let's say. I don't know if that's the right word. That's what it is. It's a...
Do you know what
Muslim.
Kesed is?
No.
Okay,
Crown. I mean,
so,
I understand something higher than everything else. In the crown.
so the way he's explaining in Ayin Beis, Kesed is Rotzen.
Right.
The whole Ayin Beis is built on explaining the three meanings in Kesed.
Right.
But bottom line is Kesed is Makif.
So in
As
Kesser-
opposed to Atzilus is Primius, Kesed is Makif.
Right.
In Keiches HaNefesh, the 10 spheres in Atzilus are what's called the Keiches Pnimium, like the faculties from wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and then the midas, all the way to Malchus.
Right.
And Kesser is the crown, is the Makif of Atzilus, which is like the willpower.
Right.
But more specifically, the will is Arich of Kesser, and Tainuk, the pleasure behind the will, is Atik.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So basically, these are two Keiches Makifim. In the Neshama levels, you'd say Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Atik, Arich would be Chaya. Atik would be Yechida.
Okay, got it.
So it's like so the three levels are in Pnimis.
It's down here.
Chochmah, Bina, Chabad, Chagas,
Systems.
Nehim.
Right.
That's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, backwards. Shama, Ruach,
Right,
Nefesh.
right.
And Kesed is the Mekech Makifim Chaya Yechida. That's generally its space, its place
Okay.
in a person and in the big picture.
Right.
But a key part of Kesed, which is what he's discussing here, is its mamutza role.
Right.
In a sense, the Rotzen and Tainug of the Eibishter is a mamutza between Atzmus and the Keches Pnimium. So the Eibishter has a Rotzen and a pleasure. That's the mamutza. But his dilemma is that that Tainug or the Atik is so part that where's it a mamutza? That's what he's struggling with here. Where's it a mamutza? It remains always a part. It never becomes part of Shtalshus. So what
Where's the
mamutza
connection?
is? Just like a person who speaks Hebrew. He's not translated in English.
Right.
And Arich, on the other hand, only speaks English, doesn't speak Hebrew. So that's where he's going on to Chochmah. Chochmah becomes this force that's both Chochmah and higher than Chochmah Stamah. That's higher than Chochmah and Chochmah. And that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
He's going to a whole explanation now how this Chochmah Stamah is going to be really the mamutza between Atik and Arich.
Right.
It has a piece of Atik and a piece of Atzmus, and has a piece of lower than it, Arich and Netzolim.
In other words, it's
And once you
able to
master the
transcend.
Chochmah Stamah, you create, let's put it this way, it's like, actually like in engineering.
Yes.
He's trying to create this switch between these two, Netzolim and Maitzah. Once you do that, then there's others to do. There's other levels to connect. But this is a critical one because this is how Atzilus comes to be.
Let me just.
Does that make
Let
sense?
me just say what a grub example, real grub example. I'm sorry. I work in a building right now that has 3 elevator banks. So if you want to go to the 24th floor, the 26th floor, you go 1 bank. And then the other one from the 24th to the 30, whatever, you have to go to another bank. It happens to be that the 24, the 25th, and 26th share banks.
Okay.
So he's saying is that the fact that you can go to the 24th and go and take the next elevator up to the next thing with Arif and Arif, that's not called Mumutza. A Mumutza is somehow, that you're going up in one bank, which looks like one way, and somehow at one point in point in time, you shift into the other thing without getting off on the floor. You're still going in the same thing, but you're in a different thing.
Hyperspace.
Yeah. Somehow you move dimensions in a different way, but you're still in the same way, and you can go up and down, no problem. It means it's true throughout. Mashenko here, it's not true throughout because you're in one reality. Here you're speaking Hebrew, here you're speaking English, and even though there's a translation.
There's thousands of examples.
No, I'm saying that's what I see. He's looking for a way that permeates all the way up, and that's a real mumutza.
Yeah, but
Otherwise, it's not a mumutza.
I'll give you another example.
In other words, it's a third thing.
You're teaching a child ABC, Ayin Beis.
Yeah.
The child has no clue what this ABC is going to do for him.
Right.
You do.
Yeah.
You know once he learns ABC,
Make words.
the next he'll learn how to make words. Then he'll learn how to make sentences. Then he'll learn how to paragraphs. And this person can become a most powerful thinker using language.
Right.
The ABC at the stage where you're teaching a child is a mamutza.
Right.
Between a place where there's no so-called
Abstract.
tools
Yeah.
to express, and words are going to give this child the tools. Every transition of growth from one place to the next needs a intermediary
Right.
that is a little of here and a little of there. So the words that the child learns ABC, the common denominator with a brilliant writer or teacher, we use the same letters.
Right.
But he's only doing the letters, which are later going to help him climb the ladder.
Right.
And we already understand what the letters bring to. Now the same thing is in, let's call it in spiritual conditioning. To bring someone from a materialistic life, a life driven by self-interest and narcissism, to a world where you are a little more giving, more sensitive, is also, everybody needs a mamutza to go from here to there. Sometimes a mamutza shalei lishma. Do it for ulterior motive, you know? It helps you in your life, in your business, in whatever. But meanwhile, you're getting trained in there. And as you get trained, you become more accustomed, more assimilate. You assimilate.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, it's and everything is in that type of movement here. Here he's talking, of course, on very high levels, but it's all about that. It's finding a language to speak to someone on their terms, but you want to bring them away from their terms. You want to help them climb. That's what it all comes down to. Here is the language. Here is the language of the mamutza between higher than spheres and spheres. That makes sense to you?
Everything makes sense.
No, but this is like, huh? That's the beauty of it. And here is going to ultimately come down to saying that essentially by God giving us wisdom, chachma, He gave us a tool through which to connect to Him. In other words, had we been just like animals that work by midas, animals are primarily impulsive. They can fulfill God's will and play out God's script, but they can't have a relationship. And chachma, the idea of wisdom, intelligence, that He created an intelligent human being and put an neshama has intelligence. Intelligence is a bridge to the divine.
Yeah, there's no sense of self.
That's basically what it comes down to. And he's going to explain how intelligence has two pieces. One of it is on our terms, which means it's something that we can relate to. And second, it has an element that brings you to a place that is beyond you. Because intelligence allows you to go to travel places that you were initially not really even worthy of going. You can read about you can dream, you can aspire to read about a better world. You may not be there yet, but the mind allows you to think about that better world. Animals don't dream of a better world. That's why they don't aspire to go there. Humans aspire to improve their lives all the time. Now, most of us do it more technologically. We dream better homes, better technologies, better iPhones, better internet, and so on. But the idea of improving your quality of life, spiritual life, psychological life, emotional, people also involved in that. But Chassidus primarily, Torah is teaching you how to connect to something that's improving, far beyond. But it all begins with the mind being able to dream of things that don't exist right here. No technology that has ever been developed came from a person who was just following the status quo. He had to dream of a better reality. And I'm sure the best technology developers are those that are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to think crazily. like completely out of the box.
Yeah.
Don't think in terms of what you
Yesterday.
see and how do I improve it, but completely, I want a new solution and it's hard to do because what tools do you use? All you have are the tools from yesterday.
Mhm.
So you need a certain element of something that catapults you to another place. Now, some people do it through foreign substances, Some people do it through wild behavior. You read sometimes the grubber stuff of some of these great innovators. They took their mistress to some mountain for 2 months, and they came back with a brilliant idea. It's connected to that, and everybody has their way. But there's a Torah way. A Torah way is that you could go to places like that, but you have to do it it's a process. When we learn Chassidus, it's supposed to expand the consciousness in that fashion. We may never be infinite, but you can dream about the infinite. And you can relate to it by, sometimes through process of elimination, by saying, it's not what I have. And then slowly you start really coming to relate to a place like that, connecting to beyond.
Stick on the day.
Okay. Now you don't know what to
Shkoyach,
do.
thank you very much, Simon.
Pleasure. This is a marathon.
Interesting day.
By the way, who can tell you